For Monday, May 13, 2013 at 7 p.m. and this is the regular council meeting. We'll call the meeting to order and ask for an introduction of late items. Mr. Howard.
Thank you, Your Worship. We'd like to move item 7A, the Colliery Dam, move to
Forward.
7A, the Colliery Dam discussion. We'd also like to add an email from Mr. Scott Morgan, the head of the Dam Safety Branch, titled Middle and Lower Chase River Dams, to item 7A. We'd also like to add the following delegations to item 7A for the Colliery Dams: Mr. Fred Taylor, Mr. Gord Fuller, Mr. Lawrence Reaper, Mr. Bruce Erickson, Mr. Stephen Hill, Ms. Grace Nielsen, and Ms. Robin Hunter. We'd also like to add item 7B, the delegations pertaining to the financial plan, and that's from originally 9A, I think it was. We'd also like to move move the financial plan amendment bylaw 2013 number 716201 to item 7C, and we'd like to move the tax rates bylaw 2013 number 7167 to item 7D.
Okay, I just might point out to the delegations that because there are a number of speakers on the same subject, everyone will be limited to 5 minutes. Would somebody like to move the agenda as amended? Second, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We'll move into the motion of the adoption of the minutes. Yes, you can. So 4A. Is there a seconder?
Second.
Discussion on 4A. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. 4B.
So we're going to have an issue with it.
Okay. And is there a seconder?
Second.
Second. Councillor Kipp, you're on.
Yeah, Your Worship, on page 33 at 0513, it was about a motion that was defeated regarding the water treatment reservoir reduction, 250,000, and the engineering public works budget. It was a bad night. I am in favor of that motion, but I'm written down as being opposed to it, so I'd like that minutes to reflect that.
It's 05513, is that correct?
Yes.
And Mr. Howitt, do you have that change? Okay, so that means that
As
Councillor Kipp
amended.
voted in favor. Thank you. We'll make that change.
Call a question.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Move into presentation, and the very first presentation I have is to Mr. Charles Tortheim and Mrs. Kathy Tortheim, with the patron city certificates for their many years of selfless volunteerism in the city of Nanaimo. Torheim, I think it's pronounced correctly. I'm sorry. And but I'll get them to correct me on that one. Sorry, Charles. But I want to say that they both have done an incredibly active role throughout their residency in Nanaimo, and they have contributed so much to the success, primarily in the South End, where they have a very, not only vested interest, but a very passionate feeling for that area. And I know they've been very, very greatly supportive of Doug Hardy and all the people in the South End that have worked so hard to make that such a success, and the turnaround is massive, and it's so deserving. So now, with that, I'll bring the hardware up here.
They brought out all the heavies. Jim Stewart was here. The hotel. You got peanut butter or something like that. Yeah. Chocolate. Scott.
So I'd just like to start off, normally it's ladies first, but Charles, since you're closer to me, at a special meeting of the Nanaimo City Council for the year 2013, duly convened in the city of Nanaimo, province of British Columbia, on Monday, the 18th day of March, 2013, at which all members were present. The following resolution was passed, namely that the city of Nanaimo hereby confer upon Charles Tortheim, am I pronouncing that right? Torium, forgive me. Charles Torium, patron of the city, in recognition and appreciation for his passion and selflessness volunteerism in promoting the south of Nanaimo and his many years of contributions to other activities and organizations within our community. Witness the signatures of members of council and the seal of the corporation at Nanaimo, BC, this 13th day of May 2013, and it's been signed by the mayor and all of the council. So, Charles, congratulations. And certainly not to be forgotten, his hardworking wife, Kathy, is here, and the very same presentation at a special meeting of the Nanaimo City Council in 2013. The City of Nanaimo hereby confers upon Kathy Torheim. Auditorium. I'm sorry for that. Patron of the city, in recognition and appreciation of her passion and selfless volunteerism in helping promote the South of Nanaimo as well, and for many years of involvement with many other activities and organizations within our community. So, witness the signatures of the member of council and seal of the city of the Corporation of the City of Nanaimo, and the same date, 13th May 2013, and again signed by the mayor and all members of council. So, Kathy, congratulations.
Mr. Mayor and Council, thank you so much for this. Thank you so much for this opportunity to receive this award. It has been our privilege to live in Nanaimo, to work with such wonderful people, and I have a real belief that service is the rent you pay for the space you occupy. So we have been delighted to have been able to serve in this way. Thank you so much.
Now we have another presentation to make too, and that's to Daniel Ramos. Daniel? Where's Daniel? Daniel. So, and this is a particularly prestigious award to receive too, because this award recognized Daniel for his immediate action when somebody, another fellow student, was choking. And so I'll read this to the Certificate of Merit presented to Daniel Ramos for your heroism and quick action in saving a student from choking while traveling with the Wellington Secondary School Band in Moscow, Idaho. So congratulations. Did you have any words you wanted to say?
Lionel Hampton, Jeff.
None at all. Well, congratulations. Well done.
Wow, this is a nice standing ovation. It's not very often people other than us get
Bring the
standing
photographer
ovations.
up here.
Eh? Not very often people other than us get a standing O.
So let's get a picture here. We'll get the sun in the middle here.
Oh, they couldn't have come at a better night.
Say Lionel Hampton.
Is he Chinese or Mexican?
A good one.
I'm not sure.
Who paid for that?
I'm not sure.
School? It was good. My kids went a couple times. My kids went to that jazz festival. It was wonderful.
I think you better operate.
I could only play the triangle, so they didn't ever need one of those.
Hey, well done. Congratulations.
John, they want to put you.
Put it in the Nanaimo crest so you can actually have a place to get a picture with the city and the Nanaimo crest behind you. Not that one, the crest. That's Jerry.
Wait.
That's Jerry.
We should have the crest through picture taken so everybody knows where that is. That is a good idea.
That's
Our city flags
That
right
was
there.
400K at the north and 400K at the south. That's what that was.
Look at this.
And then about 2 mil to change the letterhead and all the cars.
Thank you.
So for anybody that wants to know, hey Bill. No, the score in the game.
So just for your notice,
Score in the game.
Boston 5, Toronto 4 overtime.
Which brave guy said Ray?
Boston 5, Toronto 4 overtime.
So Rogers Sportsnet just went up.
Boston won.
Okay, we'll just wait for a moment till the some of the people leave, and there might be room for others to be seated.
Toronto suicides in Toronto, yeah, why people beat them. Poor Toronto.
And now, while some are leaving and some are arriving, we'd like to call upon the representatives on behalf of Suzo Youth Travel Services Company Limited to provide a presentation regarding their proposal for the acquisition, development, and operation of a hotel adjacent to the Vancouver Island Conference Centre. If you would like to come forward, sir. Welcome.
Thank you. Your Worship, members of council, my name is Perry Ehrlich. Don't hold it against me. I'm a lawyer from Vancouver. And I'm here to talk about SSS Manhouse proposal to you with respect to development, construction, and operation of a first-class hotel at 100 Gordon Street in Nanaimo. Before I go any further, I wanted to acknowledge thanks to you for hearing us this evening. And I also wanted to acknowledge the incredible support that we've got not only from the Nanaimo Economic Development Corp, in particular Sasha Angus, but the whole business community has really come forward, and it's been just a joy. And I believe that there's members of the business community who are here and who support what we're trying to do and my client's trying to do in Nanaimo, and I would just ask them to stand up to acknowledge.
Are there members of support? Oh, good heavens. Got half the crowd with you.
And I didn't have to pay anybody to come either. Anyway, so I know that time is important, that we get through this quickly, so I'm going to, as I've said before, stand up, speak up, and shut up. So we're going to start first with talking about three things: the team, the dream, and the theme. And while this may sound a little cheesy and a little hokey, these are important things that we review for you and for the benefit of others who may be watching this and seeing what we're talking about. First of all, the team. Representing SSS, we have here today Shaw An Dong and also Junhao Chen. If you could stand up, please. And of course, I'm here, and my associate Linda Chen is here, who, thank God, is able to translate. If you have any questions later. Now, SSS Manhao International Tourism Group Canada Co. Ltd. is a company that was recently incorporated in 2012, and it's an affiliate of Suzo Youth Travel Services Co. Ltd. This is a company that's in the business of tours. They send 41,000 people per day on tours out of China all over the world. And that's why building a hotel and sending people here works hand in hand with their mission and what they want to do. Let me tell you a little bit about Suzo. Suzo was incorporated in 1984. It's a worldwide travel agency with approximately 800 employees, many of whom are, if not all, tour leaders. They take people all over the world. And Suzo was one of the first international travel services providers approved by the Chinese State Tourism, and it ranked 13th of the top 100 Chinese travel service providers and ranked first in the Jiangsu province. And as I've indicated to others who have asked the question, as I understand Jiangsu, it's a large province with Shanghai at the tip. Financially, because everybody wants to know about finances, can they afford to do what they're doing? Gross revenues in 2011 were 150 million Canadian dollars. In 2012 are proposed to be 175 million Canadian. They diversified in 2010, and basically they built their first hotel, the SSS Fiji China Hotel in Fiji. It's a hotel outside China, and it basically is a gorgeous Chinese, as you can see here. It's a beautiful Chinese palace surrounded by meticulous gardens and very serene and beautiful. And they are currently looking at locations not only here in Nanaimo, but also in Nottingham in the United Kingdom. So we've talked about this. Now let's move on and talk about the dream. The dream here is to construct a world-class hotel that will encourage tourism, inspire the economy, create job opportunities, and in so doing enhance the profile of the city of Nanaimo. Now, it's no secret to anybody who lives in British Columbia, the Chinese tourists have contributed significantly to the economy of many countries, in particular Canada and BC. So basically, what do we want to do? We want to make the dream a reality. Well, how do we do that? Well, first of all, we construct a hotel that has exquisite rooms, restaurants, bars and lounges, spa shops and facilities, a disco, a beauty salon, karaoke lounge. But more important than that is my client plans to establish a new tour route with an overnight stay, whereby people traveling to Canada, the United States, when they come to Vancouver, or rather than flip over to Victoria, they come directly to Nanaimo. So his goal is to establish a direct route where Nanaimo would become a destination stay. And in so dealing with this, we'd be creating 500 job opportunities, employing local contractors, tradesmen, and suppliers, and that's just in building the hotel. Once the hotel is built, obviously we'll be employing local people here to fill all needs of the hotel. Now, we also want to promote the conference center. And my client has expressly stated that he has an interest in the future, in a partnering agreement with the city, when the city would be interested in it to manage the conference center. And he's also had meetings this week with Vancouver Island University, because he sees that as being a logical extension of being part of the community. The same way you acknowledge volunteers and good work, that's what he brings to the table here. He sees not only that I'm going to build a hotel in this city, but he also sees I'm going to liaise with the university. We can talk about a tourism program. Apparently they've got a hospitality management program whereby his hotel will house international students and mentor teams that can be sent all over the world, because we understand that currently that there are many students from China and Asia who are attending the university here. So, what are our goals? Our goals are to attract 70,000 tourists each year. Now, when you consider 41,000 per day this company sends to international destinations, 70,000 is like a day and a half of the number of people that they move out of China on vacation. So and the concept of how the $70,000 was relied on was in factoring in just how many people that they send on tours. Estimated revenue of about $35 million a year. The goal here is not to compete with the local hotels. It's not to take away from the local hotels, but to inject new tourists here to see your community. Now, let's talk about the deal, because that's important. We've talked about the team, we've talked about the dream. Let's talk about the deal now. Purchase of the land and a perpetual lease of 200 parking spaces in the conference center. Why do we need parking spaces? Well, obviously, the configuration of the land is such there is currently, from our studies, no room for sufficient parking to facilitate the hotel, and therefore we have to look beyond the actual land to look for parking. Now let's talk about the money. I understand that the property was recently appraised at $565,000. My client is prepared to purchase the land for that. And he's prepared as well to lease the parking spaces at the city's current rates, which is $3.17 per day based on usage. And when that may be increased, whatever it is, he's prepared to pay it, just as long as he knows that there will be 200 spaces available if he needs them. Keep in mind that tourists, people come in on tours, they come here by bus, not by car, so that the needs will vary. And for example, when there'll be people, for example, from Vancouver brought here on convention, there will be a need for parking spaces. But in the model of bringing 3 or 4 tour buses, they will not be needed. So those two things go hand in hand: purchase of the land for what it's been appraised at, and paying for the parking spaces what you currently charge others for those parking spaces based on usage. Now, the assumption is, of course, as well, that we'll be able to work through an agreement with the city and its solicitors to come to this. Now, show me the money, because you want to know that this is not a pipe dream. It's not. The estimated cost of is $50 million, and as a sign of good faith, my client has confirmed he's already got $9 million on deposit here to get started with the project. And in the future, he does plan to sell off individual suites to investors, but that's not going to be a precondition of the development. He would like to begin the groundbreaking and proceed with construction of the hotel, and further on look at selling suites by way of recouping his capital. So now we have the theme. That's the next setting. The theme of the hotel is one of oriental beauty, elegance, and tranquility, and it's going to be similar to the SSS Fiji China Hotel, but the architect could not come today, but she sent me some notes. This is her basic design, their basic design. First of all, the team that SSS has assembled includes GBL architects and world-class contractors. GBL, they were responsible for the original rezoning of the Vancouver Olympic Village, and here in Nanaimo, they were involved with the Pacifica Tower, which I understand was a complex project which involved salvaging existing multi-story structure and building a tower above it. And it's had great benefits to the city. Now, the beauty of all of this is and I've used this analogy before, is the same way the Pan Pacific has become a symbol of Vancouver. GBL has looked to build something on the land here because it's a very unusual shape of land, to build something that's going to properly project and not be obtrusive. So what they've done is the inspiration of the building comes from its location, immediately adjacent to Piper Park and the prominent cliff facing the hotel site. And of course, it's close to civic buildings like the conference center and the library and the Port Theatre and the great views, obviously. So basically, when they put this together, it looks like the prow of a ship, and the angled point of view is facing towards the water and will be clearly visible by passengers who arrive by the plane or by boats. And the building facade is further segmented, taking its cues from the rock and facing. And I'm just going to go this very quickly because I'm not an architect, but this is what they tell me, that the first floor is going to be dedicated to a grand hotel lobby, which will have extensive landscaping and water features. And there'll be commercial spaces along Gordon Street and Museum Way, which will add commercial vibrancy to those areas in your downtown. The second floor will be hotel amenities. The third floor will be a pedestrian link from the conference center to the park, and there are retail spaces proposed for this level as well. Fourth floor, pool, large gym and spa. Floors 5 to 16 are hotel suites, about 197 of them. And then the 17th floor, the pièce de résistance, is envisaged as a bar and a restaurant with an open terrace that's going to capture the views of the harbor. The building area will be about 145,000 square feet, and well below your requirements, it'll be 200 feet in height. So what does SSS bring to the table? Well, number one, financial resources integrity. Number two, expertise and experience in design, development, construction, and operation of hotels. Three, a commitment to excellence. 4, long-term commitment to Nanaimo and fostering economic vibrancy. We were asked this question earlier today by CTV about Nanaimo. I met with my client 2 or 3 months ago. He has great belief in Nanaimo. He loves Nanaimo. It's his first choice, and he has checked the other city that begins with the letter V. But he's checked it, and he has a special fondness for Nanaimo because he sees the potential here, and he sees it to be very unique. And he's committed to excellence. Everything he does is in that suit, and he really has a view. And we would hope that not only that this project would serve not only to add something to Nanaimo, but other businesses would be attracted here to fill out the commercial zones, so your commercial areas, so that when tourists come here, they'd walk down your streets and they see, I see there's an art gallery that's recently come here. That is what we're looking for the tourists to see. Basically, my client is able to move efficiently and effectively. He's got the money, he's got the vision, he's got the team, he's got the dream, he's got the theme. I know I've spoken very quickly, but I think I've covered everything I wanted to say, subject to any questions that you may have.
Well, thank you very much.
By the way, I was told I got an email this morning that scared me that said I had only 10 minutes to speak, and in my entire life, I've never spoken for just 10 minutes. So
And you
that was
didn't this
great.
time either. It's now 14 minutes and 25 seconds. So we do have some questions for you.
Sure.
And there'll be some others, I'm sure, with them. But I'm interested in your relationship between the proposed hotel and the conference center. In previous developments that have approached the city of Nanaimo, they wanted control of it. And I wondered how you see your relationship.
Well, first of all, my client wants to promote the conference center, and usually conferences are booked well in advance. And no different than when you pick up the phone and you call the Coast here, or you call the Marriott's or whatever, it'll be reservation and block booking, and he will know not to bring tours here if there's a need for the conferences or if local people book those spaces. The other thing is that while we talk about 70,000 tourists a year, let's do the math. First of all, currently in the hotel, we have all sorts of configurations. We've got your regular hotel rooms, we've got 1-bedroom suites, we've got 2-bedroom suites. So if you take 365 days a year and 200 suites, you get over 70,000 people. But people are not in hotel rooms by themselves, usually double occupancy. So it's actually in his best interest to, number one, is to bring in conventions and fill the rooms for the conference center, for the conferences here.
Okay, because selfishly, we really want to see, as much as we want you to succeed, obviously, we do need to make sure there's more space available. And I'm assuming between a 4 and a 5-star facility is what you envision?
Oh, of course. The other thing is he is committed, my client's committed to build an extension to the conference center. And he wouldn't be building the conference if he didn't use it. And I can say this, not because I'm trying to suck up to you, but this is my first time in the conference center. This is a gorgeous building. It's really a world-class building, and it would be really nice to have something next door that's going to share its beauty and promote each other.
Well, we certainly agree with you on that. And I think the last point I had, and I think you sort of touched on it, as long as you did have a room base that you could ensure that conferences, when they come to Nanaimo, will have equal priority. I'm just sort of thinking that if you ever were successful in getting 70,000 people here in a year, that would put quite a bit of pressure on the hotel if even a majority of them stay in the hotel.
I think my client would love that pressure, and I think is most conventions or conferences book well 6 months to a year ahead of time. And because he's both the owner of the hotel and the tour leader, he has the ability to say, okay, we're going to bypass Nanaimo because we've got 100,000 lawyers coming to Nanaimo. Okay.
Okay. Councillor Patchy.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Mr. Ehrlich, very much. I just want to get this straight in my mind.
Okay.
You're willing to pay market value for the land.
Yes.
You'll take advantage of a 10-year tax break.
Right.
You want an understanding, a deal with the city with regards to parking.
Yes.
And if it is left at that, and there is no further connection with the conference center, how would that work for your client? The reason I'm asking that is that I am satisfied with the work that Adlific, the present company, is doing. And I think they have shown great temerity and hard work and doing things under very difficult circumstances. So I'd hate to lose them in a sense. Mm-hmm. So my question to you is, how would that work for your client if the relationship stays at that point?
Well, I think it works perfectly, and I think the original proposal was a substantially different deal. And my client has come full circle to meet the needs of what the city wants. For example, he said he was prepared to pay the appraised value of the land. We were told it was $565,000. He said, I'll pay $565,000. Now, I don't know how many of you have sold homes lately, and I don't know how many of you have sold you have listed your homes for sale, but nobody pays the asking price. And he says, it's a no-brainer for me. It's $565,000, where we started with $1. In fact, he holds me responsible for the fact that he has to pay $565,000. But there's no problem. let's also keep in mind that going ahead in the future, his need and his want is to be part of this community, and it could very well be that he will partner with your existing manager to work out a plan that they can both promote their interests. So there's no problem with that.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Johnstone.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Mr. Ehrlich, for your presentation. It's an interesting cycle that we've turned and could possibly turn with the Chinese community first coming to our, Chinese citizens coming to our community to invest in our industry, the coal mining industry. The city was built on the backs of Chinese people in the coal industry. And now we're looking at an interesting opportunity to invest in the tourism industry with the Chinese community. And I think it's a very exciting prospect. And I thank you for the opportunity.
Well, I'm excited, vicariously excited about it, because I think that when you have somebody who runs a very successful tour business in China, and they come to Nanaimo, and they fall in love with the city, and they see the potential for the city, and they say, we want to bring 70,000 tourists here a year because it's so beautiful. Mm-hmm. I think that that's a good thing for him and for you.
It's a wonderful green industry, and we're excited to be part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I see no further questions, but maybe from staff. As we're moving ahead, how do you envision the next step along this plan? Now you'll have negotiations with the Hotel Association, or Hotel Consortium, I'm sorry.
Your Worship, staff are working closely with the staff from the Nanaimo Economic Development Corporation and are fully prepared to assist in any further discussions that we can. And I think the next step, if the proponent is willing, is to put together some sort of agreement. So we'd be more than pleased to work with the parties on that.
Great, thank you. I just would like to comment that Sasha Angus from NEDC has worked very hard to bring this about, and I think he is largely responsible personally for bringing this company forward. So. So that said, sir, I see no further, unless you have anything to add, I see no further questions.
Well, we just like your support. We have prepared an offer to purchase, which has a few standard conditions about that we have to check to make sure everything's good with the soils and the environmental tests, et cetera, et cetera. But we'd like to move on with your support to the next step so that we can start making big plans. My client can start making big plans for Nanaimo away from these meetings and away from city officials. Let's get some shovels into the dirt.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item we're going to move into now is administration. And once again, we'll allow the Okay, if we could get back to our seats again, and then we have some delegations. We have 11 of them, and again, 5 minutes each. And Donna, you didn't remind me to bring my valued timer with me. That's my fault, I forgot.
Your Worship,
Yeah.
were you going to read that letter out first? Was that your intention? Or?
We do. Do you have an overhead for it? Do you want to do this in advance of the delegations? Okay. Let me find my letter here.
It's on your.
Yeah, but the print's too small. Okay, I just think it's important for the purpose of this meeting. You can see behind me and on the screen, perhaps at home, a letter that was received at 3:44 this afternoon from Scott Morgan, who's the head of the Dam Safety Section in Victoria. And I'll read it for you. It's addressed to our head of engineering, Susan Clift. Dear Susan Clift, the Associated Engineering report entitled Chase River Dam Breach Flood Inundation Study stated that there were unacceptable deficiencies in both the Middle Chase River Dam and the Lower Chase River Dam, and states the probability of an extreme failure in these dams is very high. The report also classifies both dams as extreme consequences. This combination of probability and consequence resulted in an unacceptable risk to the community downstream of the dam. On October 29, 2012, we received a letter from the City of Nanaimo stating the City of Nanaimo Council passed a resolution to proceed with removal of the Middle and Lower Chase dams as soon as reasonably possible. On January 21, 2013, we accepted that this decision as a viable option to eliminate the unacceptable risk to downstream community, posed by these two dams. It is my understanding that the Nanaimo City Council are considering a change in their position with regard to this resolution. Please note that the province's position with regard to these dams has not changed. Should removal of these dams not be undertaken this year, the City of Nanaimo must mitigate the risk by some other method acceptable to the province. Leaving the dams in their present condition for an additional year is not acceptable. Signed, yours truly, Scott Morgan, from the Dam Safety Section. So now let's start in with the delegations.
Your Worship, I have a question on the letter.
Okay.
It says on the first paragraph, the last sentence, the combination of probability and consequence. So the probability is, can staff tell me?
Well, this just don't listen. We want to control this meeting, and we want to show some respect for everyone here. And so, if you would listen to what the speakers are saying, I'd really appreciate it. Go ahead.
Yes, the probability for a flood inundation is 1 in 200, and for seismic is 1 in 475 years.
Okay, and on the last part, it talks about, in the last paragraph, should removal of the dams not be undertaken, the City of Nanaimo must mitigate the risk by some other method acceptable to the province. Has the province been made aware of all of the alternates that we have come up with on our proposal? I think there's 8. Has the province dam branch had the ability to look over those other mitigations we're looking at?
Mayor Tan, in answer to Councillor Kip's question, no, the regular process is that we take the design to the province and then they would sign off on that. So at this stage, we've got these options. The options accepted would move forward to the province. What they're speaking of in this letter is the need to mitigate the risk that the current dams present.
Well, that gets to my point. Thank you, Mr. Hickey. My point is the fact that if we give them some more alternatives to our mitigation, it might impact how they think. Thank you.
Okay. Now we have the first delegation is Mr. Charles Thurkel. Mr. Thurkel. And I'd remind, again, we have 5 minutes for each delegation, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Charles Thurkel, I'm a fisheries biologist and I have lived in Nanaimo for 20 years. The first 10 years of my life I lived in Harewood, and I'm very much aware of the value of the colliery dams. I worked on the Vancouver Island University trout and salmon hatchery for the duration of my time at the college, and I'm really familiar with the Chase River system. I also understand, how high public opinion is running on this issue, and I just want to say that I respect the concerns that people have over the fate of these dams and the Colliery Dam Park in general. That said, I think, speaking personally, I think the first issue that comes to mind for me is public safety. I think that the overriding issue is that 1,800 people live below these dams, and they currently hold 200,000 cubic meters of water, all of which could be released in about 30 minutes. That would equate to the flow of the the Fraser River at Prince George in November or March. And it's an extremely high flow, and there would be no resisting it, no escaping from it, because it would happen under the worst possible conditions. The other thing is that this is, you have to consider John Barsby School. The students there don't have any choice. They're basically stuck there, as it were, and if the dams failed, they wouldn't have very many options facing them. But the other issue is stream rehabilitation. The Chase River is the most productive stream in the city. I've only heard it spoken once at the last meeting. The Chase River is not only the most productive stream in the city, it's more productive than all the other streams combined. Very, very important for coho and for chum, and it produces an average of 800 spawning salmon every year with a maximum of 5,000. You can't do any better than that in the urban corridor on the Strait of Georgia. The third principle after public safety and stream rehabilitation is not spending money we do not have. We've already done enough of that in Nanaimo, and I don't need to mention exactly where that money went. But I don't think we need to borrow more money to pay tribute to the past. I think if we do anything, we need to invest in the future. I find it ironic that many people speak in praise of the colliery dams. They forget that in their day, they did just as much damage to the ecology and fishing industry as the Raven coal mine would do if it were approved and went ahead. They had a profound effect on the local fishery, and the comments go right back to a book by Terry Rexton called The Dunsmuir Saga. In 1871, a local fisherman, William Hughes, complained that the colliery, the boats coming in to load coal, were destroying his fishery. And of course, they destroyed the fishery of the native people who lived here too. I find that ironic, and I also find it ironic that people are so much in support of the fish that get released into the colliery dams. They are essentially hatchery fish from Duncan. They're sterilized in the egg stage, and they cannot reproduce. They're called triploid fish. And in their way, they're almost as artificial as the Atlantic salmon that are raised in net pens in the Broughton Archipelago. And very few people in this room would probably support that salmon fishing industry. But I love to catch trout, and I catch those too, and I eat them. But they don't belong in the river systems. And the third thing I would like to say, the last thing, I'm going to be as brief as possible. I'd like to say that nature always bats last. Always. And what will happen here is that when the dams are removed, because I don't think that anything I say or anybody else say is going to alter your decision here tonight, because I think you have a moral imperative to do the right thing. And I think I know what that is. But nature always bats last. And when the engineers have done with their mitigation of these dams, wildlife will take over. The main thing that will happen is that the area will be colonized by beaver, and you will have 2, 3, 4, or 5 excellent beaver dams, which would make somebody like Grey Owl very proud. Those dams will support naturally occurring fish. They won't need supplementation with hatchery fish. It's really, really unfortunate that those fishing opportunities are going to be lost. And I do feel, as I said, I feel concerned too for the fate of the Colliery Park, as it will then be known. But I do think that the 800 meters of Chase River, which will be rehabilitated to their original condition, is worth the price. Thank you very much for your time. And again, I respect everybody else's opposing opinions here tonight, and I hope they respect mine. Thank you,
sir. The next delegation is Mr. Jeff Solomon. Mr. Solomon, you have up to 5 minutes as well.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. And I want to thank you all again for paying so much attention to this matter. I realize it's been very time-consuming and very difficult for everybody concerned. I'm somewhat disillusioned to some degree with respect to receiving the letter from the Dam Safety Branch today, a couple of hours ago. It reminds me of when we came here on January 21st, and suddenly a letter from Dam Safety Branch suddenly arrived as we were asking for a meeting with the stakeholders. When you make decisions together as a group and you make decisions that people have input together, then you come out with good decisions. The way this process has gone has been flawed, and this is part of the difficulty that we've been dealing with all the way along. Yes, there are ways to mitigate the risk. Absolutely. We proposed a plan that we thought was extremely acceptable and should be acceptable. We've been told for a long period of time, no, you don't have to take out the water. The dams are stable. We found that the cement is more better than even new cement. And that we found that there's rebar in the concrete. And we know that the people have been told downstream that there's an evacuation plan in place, and has mitigated the risk tremendously just in that respect. That states that in the study. You tell people that there's a problem and that there could potentially be a problem, you have already mitigated the risk substantially. There are other ways of doing this, but deconstruction of the dams on an immediate basis is not the way to go. It's damaging to the community, it's damaging to the river, it's damaging to our psyche. We are losing everything, and that isn't the proper way of doing it. It says in that letter, it says very clearly that there are ways to mitigate the risk, that people need to talk together to do this. If it's not acceptable to leave both dams for the entire course of the next year until there's a design in place and reconstruction takes place next year, then that can be talked about. But there are other means to do this. This was actually from my speech. Like a lot of other people, I moved here from a very big city, and I've stayed in the area because of proximity to the park. I've never, ever took it for granted. I've always felt blessed to have access to such a beautiful place. And when the decision was made to remove our lakes, like a lot of other people, I was devastated. And then I thought that at least I and our family have been privileged to have had these 30 years and the memories that go with it. And then I considered how selfish that I could be when I thought of the young families up the street with kids, my next door neighbor who has a bench for her deceased husband overlooking his favorite fishing spot, the woman who went into a deep depression after receiving the news that the dams were to go and the lakes were to disappear, and the dozens of low-income families who do not have the means to travel or pay for other recreational opportunities. To walk away, I felt, without making every effort to save this park for others would be unconscionable. And I know that there are many, many others who feel this way. My vision is that when I see people from the city, I don't cringe with concern that they may do damage to the park, but rather that they're to protect and to nurture what we have, that it's a special place, and I'll be thankful when I see them. And when there's an open house to discuss the plan, an open house to discuss new dams, that the staff will go there with confidence that they've consulted with the community, us, the stakeholders, the people that live here, and that they've been heard and they've had input into this plan. And then we will stand beside them and in a partnership to preserve our park for now and for future generations. That's what we want to see. We want to make a plan that works for everybody. And deconstructing the dams on an immediate basis without a plan in place is not the way to go. Thank you.
Okay, the next delegation is Dr. Lauren Gale. Did you have something to add?
No, is there a question?
No questions.
Okay,
sorry.
thank you.
Dr. Lauren Gale. Are you coming down, sir?
I defer to the end. I'll take Roland Hunter's position.
Okay, Ms. Geraldine Collins.
Mr. Mayor, Council, honored guests, I'm sure you're all tired of listening to me. So I have brought you someone that's far more interesting and much better looking. It is my honor to introduce Catriona Imre to you. Kat grew up in the Peace River, where flooding was a regular occurrence, and so she has personal experience with flooding. She graduated top of her class from NAIT as a geological technologist. She culminated her 12 years of field experience by attaining her degree from BIU in Earth Sciences. She graduated in 2010 with distinction. Kat has a special interest in seismic activity and has a talent for making complex concepts understandable to the general public. Ladies and gentlemen, Kat Imre.
Welcome.
Thanks, everybody. I just want to apologize for my outburst, Mr. Mayor. I'm incredibly frustrated. I got involved last week, and I have to say that my heart has never been more into anything ever. So I'd like to start by saying that at least 4 of my courses while I was at VIU were actually held in the park and involved in the lakes, where we did some hydrology. We tracked water levels and that kind of thing in both the Lower Dam and the Harewood Creek. In 2010, I took a course that dealt in detail with the San Andreas Fault and the Cascadia Subduction Zone, which is just outside on the ocean side of the island. So when I attended the council meeting last week, which is my first introduction to council, my first introduction to the Colliery Dam issue, I realized that there were a lot of things, a lot of questions being answered that I knew the answer to, as I apologize, tried to yell out earlier. So I know, firstly, the houses in Nanaimo, we all talk about the standards that the dams are built to. The houses in Nanaimo are built to a 1 in 2,475 standard. My understanding is that right now, the Lower Dam is at a 1 in 3,000 year standard, which means that the Lower Dam is actually stronger than the houses that you built, that you live in, that you sleep in on a daily basis. So the other thing is that the hospitals and the schools are built to the 1 in 3,000 year event. That means nothing. I heard Councillor Kipp asking, what does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? A 1 in 3,000 year event has a 1.6% probability of occurring in any given year. A 1 in 2,475 year event has a 2% probability of happening every year. Only dams and nuclear power plants are built to the 1 in 10,000 standard, which I noticed on Mr. Gale's proposal was the total rebuild would take them to that standard. So essentially what that means is when the big earthquake comes, the hospital will be in rubble and the dams will still be standing. This means that we'll have water. Thank you. We live in a seismically active area. We're part of the Ring of Fire. The only way to completely eliminate the seismic risk is to move to Saskatchewan. We are due for what is known as a megaquake. A megaquake is a magnitude 9 that can last for up to 15 minutes. In comparison, the 1906 San Francisco earthquake only lasted for about 15 seconds. The Cascadia Subduction Zone is involving 3 plates, one of which, the Pacific Plate, is moving west away from us. The Juan de Fuca Plate is moving east and going underneath the North American Plate. The further it goes under, the more it's pulled. And what happens is that as it's pulled, tension builds up, and then all of a sudden it releases because there's a breaking point. And that's when you get the megaquake. That's the only way that it releases. The last time that happened was January 26th, year 1700, at 9 p.m. The reason they know that is because the tsunamis that hit Japan have been recorded. So, the Aboriginals also have an oral history that describe what happened here on the island in 1700. Now, geological evidence shows that the Cascadia Subduction Zone ruptures on average every 500 years or so, with a range of 250 to 850 years. So the other thing to think about is that when an earthquake strikes, the magnitude is not the biggest issue. The things that cause the damage are the tsunamis, liquefaction, landslides, sudden coastal subsidence, and the actual ground shaking. The Fukushima nuclear plant in Japan was not damaged by the earthquake, but by the ensuing tsunami. I don't think the dams are in danger of a tsunami, and if they were, then we'd have bigger problems. Liquefaction is exactly what it sounds like. The ground turns to liquid. That causes landslides and all kinds of things. The dams are not on property that will liquefy. They're on bedrock. We don't have till directly beneath the dams. We don't have anything that will turn to liquid and make the dams slide down.
Okay, it's been almost 6 minutes, so if you could wrap it up, it'd be appreciated, because we've got several more speakers yet.
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
It's the ground shaking that causes the most damage, and essentially where the colliery dams are built, they're only going to shake as much as the ground does. Basically, if we rebuild them to the 1 in 10,000 year event, they will last beyond anything else in the city. And they'll be a source for, if there are the fires that rip through San Francisco, we'll have somewhere to put the fires out. We'll have drinking water because the water mains will break. Leaving the lakes there means that we have a little bit of extra emergency preparedness for Harewood, and there's no other source that close to that neighborhood that will do the same thing.
Thank you very much. I see no questions. Thank you. The next speaker I have is Mr. Fred Taylor.
Mayor Rattan and council members, the staff report on colliery dams provide no further direction, so removal can proceed, and consider further investigation of either rebuilding if desired. I consider a scam. Past history, no one having the ambition and majority support to beg for revisit of a question at a later date, and usually discouraged or not even supported by staff. And when we talk about maybe rebuilding the dam later date, Pile and Federal Fisheries has refused, I understand, to rebuild the dam. No, can't rebuild it. So when we know that, what are we trying to do here? I understand city-generated report on the condition liability of the dams provided to the provincial government has been added to their file and used to create a demand to address the high risks portrayed in our report. But just a minute, council meeting on May 8th, an engineer stated the finding of steel reinforcing, etc. within the concrete. Without this evidence, the city report earlier provided to the provincial government certainly is now of no value. Even the letter, which that's based on, you get today is no value. Do they know there's steel and everything in that cement? Completely different story. I believe some may stand up in effort to protect and or create their workplace, usually watercourse enhancement, all for the buck. That is to say, our money, whether federal, provincial and or municipal, even to destroy our recreational values. After all, one does expect removal of the lower dam will result in high waterfall that would be of impossible passage for fish. I support the community effort to save the colliery dams, even without knowledge of many voices of your hidden agenda, which many people on the street talk suspect. Please. Can't see it. Lights.
Who is that? Clint Eastwood?
Clint Eastwood.
It is.
And robbing historic sites or overrunning wild areas, those are ours, and we have to save them. As I see it, these clowns can either clean up their act or get out of town.
Diane, did you have something? Is it a question to the delegation? Councillor Brennan, you're on.
Fred, to Fred.
Sorry, I can't hear what you're saying.
I have a question for Mr. Taylor.
Yeah, that's what I asked. Mr. Taylor, you can, if you could appear to the, just one sec here.
Mr. Taylor, I've heard this more than once over the past few months, that there is a hidden agenda
I have
And
two.
so can you tell me what it is?
I don't know.
Oh.
I'm
Okay,
just saying I've
okay.
heard many voices.
No,
I
that's
said
good.
I've heard many voices.
No, fair enough.
I didn't say I know what it is.
It's okay.
Okay,
It's all right. Thank you.
I couldn't hear it. Can't hear anything.
He said he doesn't know.
he said he doesn't know. So it obviously was a well-hidden agenda then, anyway. Okay.
Pardon me?
No, I said, Councillor Brennan, nothing, no add-on? Okay, thank you, sir, that's it. Mr. Fuller, Gord Fuller.
Gord Fuller, 604 Nichols Street. The way I look at this is there's two issues here, safety and quality of life. Quality of life that past generations, present generations, and future generations could enjoy. Safety that the city has known about for roughly a decade but refused to do anything about until now. And that only at the behest of the Dam Safety Branch. There's three options on the table tonight. Provide no further direction and remove the dams. Remove the old dams and consider building one dam with no timeline involved, so the likelihood, very slim. Remove the old dams now and consider building the two dams at some future date, but no timeline. There is a fourth option that I think will be mentioned. You may have already seen it. Remove the middle dam, rebuild it. Remove the lower dam, rebuild it. All within a distinct timeline of at least a year between removal and rebuilding. The first option on the table addresses safety only and eliminates quality of life that people expect in that area that many people have enjoyed and could enjoy. Yes, there will be a certain quality of life afterwards, but not the same quality of life enjoyed. The second option offers immediate safety. Quality of life is affected, but as I said, no timeline on building one dam, so we don't even know if it ever will be built. The third option, immediate safety. Quality of life is affected, but still, no timeline on when the dams would be rebuilt. The fourth option offers immediate safety, and you could check that through the Dam Safety Branch as to whether removing the middle dam would mitigate. And it also offers quality of life, because one part of the park would remain the same. When the first part is taken down and rebuilt, then that part will be used, and the other part will be in the process of being remediated. You have a chance, this council has a chance to leave a true legacy to the citizens of Nanaimo, present and future, by choosing that fourth option. I hope you do the right thing here and make that choice. Create a legacy for yourself. This is not a legacy to be proud of.
He referred to three options, I only have two. Okay, the next delegation is Mr. Lawrence Reaper. Welcome, sir.
Lawrence Reaper, 990 Campbell Street, Nanaimo. I presented Is Nanaimo Safe last Monday. I have been advised to encapsulate what I wrote in a brief statement for those who may have had difficulty getting to 35 pages. I believe that I have successfully challenged the estimate of affected population figures using the 2012 Chase River Dam Breach Flood Inundation Study. For the permanent as opposed to the transitory population, my figures from a number of separate sources vary from a half to two-thirds of theirs. Since the population at risk has a direct bearing on the number of potential fatalities, this should have an effect on lowering that number, and hence the dam's failures consequence classification. If the engineer's report had provided any methodology as to how they arrived at those fatality numbers, I would have explored the differences, but they didn't and I couldn't. In the engineer's study, the number of fatalities was also affected by the lack of an effective warning and evacuation process. Since the residents are now fully aware of the risk and such emergency preparations are in place, shouldn't the consequence classification be reviewed? I'm going to skip the next bit because there's a lot of words, a lot of numbers there. Watersheds in square kilometres: Chase River 20, Millstone River 5 times Chase River, Nanaimo River 15 times Chase River. By volume, Westwood Lake is 46 times bigger than either of the colliery dams. By volume, South Forks Dam is similar to Westwood Lake Dam. By volume, Junk Creek Dam is 212 times bigger than either of the colliery dams. By volume, Fourth Lake is 475 times bigger than either of the colliery dams. By volume, the last three combined are 733 times either of the colliery dams. We should be more worried about the other dams, far more than colliery dams. In 2003, dam safety reviews concluded that Westwood Dam is vulnerable to liquefaction-related failure at a much less than design earthquake level. Fixing that dam became the highest priority. The review also recommended a seismic hazard assessment for colliery dams. 5 years passed before either of these recommendations were tendered. In 2008, $500,000 was spent on a rock-filled buttress downstream of Westwood Lake Dam. Should a large magnitude earthquake occur, the dam is expected to slump. That was a fix. An inundation study was conducted on Westwood Lake Dam in 2004. It was recommended that the Cat Stream and Chase River should be modelled in connection with this study. To date, nothing has happened. I studied the Millstone River and the Cat Stream for flooding, and applying similar standards as were applied to the Chase River came up with a comparable population at risk. The inundation study does not discuss fatalities, but the consequence classification for the dam is high. Under 10 people may die. I suggest it should be higher. Throughout the 90s, the Water Board was busy with major problems at the almost new Jump Creek Dam. There were issues with the spillway and low-level outlet, and the dam almost failed. It took nearly 12 years to sort out. It was critical to fix our water supply. How many of you know that little secret? As a result of that priority, other dams in Nanaimo were neglected, but by the new millennium, things were under control. In 1990, a breach flood inundation study was performed on the South Fork and Jump Creek dams. The map is on the city website. The dam failure consequence classification for both dams is very high, 10 to 100 people may die. If a breach at Fourth Lake Dam was added to the mix, 3 times more water would be coursing down the Nanaimo River. Cedar has over 250 inhabitants. How well will the population at Indian Reserves 2, 3, and 4, or South Wellington, or Nanaimo Airport, or Chase River, or along Nanaimo River Road cope with such a flood? I suggest to you that you and Harmac and the RDN find out. Remember, if a serious seismic event or a flood of biblical proportions or a combination of both hits Nanaimo, it will affect all the dams and watercourses at the same time. Colliery dams might be the least of your problems. The 2012 Colliery Dams breach flood inundation study was the first time two-dimensional computer modelling has been used on a Nanaimo dam. The results, when compared with the 2002 study of all the dams on the Chase River breaching, are dramatic. Yet a similar amount of water was involved with a not dissimilar flood boundary. Is it real or just an interpretation of a hypothetical event? I have pointed out that the dams in Nanaimo were ignored while the failure of Jump Creek Dam was worked through, and then while the conference centre was built. By my standard, this is neglect. It has led to the present impasse on colliery dams. These dams could have been fixed much more cheaply within the past 10 years, when the dam failure classifications were less stringent. The extreme, more than 100 people may die category is unique and very questionable. It's all very well talking about consequences, but what about probabilities? The colliery dams might stand for another 100 years. Nobody really knows what will actually happen. What is the probability of senior staff having to answer for the consequences of their actions or inactions in the past? Ultimately, this issue appears to be less about safety and more about redeveloping Harewood. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I see no questions. No questions, thank you. The next speaker is Mr. Oh, sorry, did you just put it in? I looked at it twice, there's nothing there. Sorry, go ahead.
Mr. Reaper, thank you very much. You said in part of your report that you went out and checked around the neighborhoods and tried to value the number of houses?
I went and counted and compared with the city directories and literally took down numbers of what appeared to be within a potential flood area and would be affected by a flood.
And you say your numbers were less, 2/3 less, or?
Generally, half to 2/3 left of the permanent population. Now, there's a transitory population that are included in that study. That's the people at school on a school day. There are 100 people traveling through in the daytime and then maybe 10 at night. And there's also, on the school grounds, there's also a childcare centre. So, but I figure the nighttime, and there's a different, the city's applied an equation for working out daytime and nighttime populations. And basically the nighttime population is the permanent population.
Thank you.
Okay, sir. Sorry, now there are no questions. Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next delegation is Mr. Bruce Erickson. Welcome, sir. Up to 5 minutes.
Hi. Bruce Erickson, live in Maxey Road, which is the Millstone Valley. I've lived there for 41 years. I grew up in Harewood. Millstone Valley is made out of about 6 or 7 lakes: Westwood, Cathars, Witchcraft, Brandon Lake, Divers Lake, Long Lake, and Green Lake. And all the years that I've been there, we've always had flooding when the river goes up, when the rain comes down and the lakes overflow. And what happens is we have what you would call little dams. At Jinglepot Bridge, we have a dam which holds the water back, slows the water down. At East Wellington, at Westwood Lake Road, they all slow the river down. So what happens is it floods back in to the fields. And fortunately, it's all fields, so nobody's complaining about the flooding. I have never ever seen the Millstone River flow like I have the Chase River. Chase River was 2 feet, 60 centimeters above the wall at Second Dam, right across the wall. First dam, there was going through the both spillways, but once it got halfway down, it was going 1 feet over the edge of the spillway. That's the force of the water that comes from Mount Benson and Blackjack Ridge. There was flooding on Howard Avenue, whatever, but what happened was, I looked at that. I was here at the meeting on Monday, and I was at the meeting on Friday, and I thought to myself, the picture I saw in 5 years of what the dam would look like, I thought that is a farce. The reason it's a farce, the force of that river going through the bottom of the dams would literally tear those dams apart. What has to happen in a dam is you must stop the flow of the river. If you cannot slow down the river, what happens? All the silt, all the sediment from Mount Benson, from Blackjack Ridge, will be going down Chase River Hill, or river. It'll be going into the river. It will destroy that river. Fisheries will get involved. They will make sure that you will be putting bales of hay or something to stop that sediment from going down there. Right now, the first and second dam, it's a sump pump. As the water comes in, the flow of it, it slows down. It slows down that river. It's still a river, but it slows it down. And what happens, the sediment will fall down, the silt will fall down, and then the clear water will go over the falls into the creek. That is why the Millstone River is such a nice river down south, because all the sediment and silt is held back by the bridges. And what happens is when it's held back from the bridges, it goes into the fields. And only when the level of the water goes down, it'll now go through clear water. I often wondered what would happen if years ago, when the Harewood Improvement District turned the dams over to the city, I'm almost wondering what would happen if the Harewood District had called them the lakes. Would they be in the same classification? Would we be having this meeting now? And what would happen? What would happen if the dams on Westwood and Cathars and Witchcraft? What happens if the city of Nanaimo, instead of calling them lakes, called them dams? Because they are dams. But we need dams. We need to retain the water. First and second dam, you have to retain that water. You have to slow it down. You have to let that sediment go down, or else you are going to wreck the creeks. You're going to wreck the fishing. One thing I saw in Harewood, I've never ever seen anywhere else. Kids walking along the street with fishing rods. Nowhere else. In closing, I honestly and truly cannot believe that the dams should be removed, can be removed, should be removed. They are so beautiful, and I honestly feel that they should be here for our children's children's children. Thank you.
Now, the next delegation is Mr. Stephen Hill. Mr. Hill, are you?
No, that was.
No question, sorry. And, no, that was.
Grace Nielsen.
That wasn't Stephen Hill. That was Bruce Erickson. If I need help. I know that was Bruce Erickson. Thank you. Stephen Hill for the second time. Are you here? Well, don't hide. Get down here. So we got 1, 2, 3 more. Sorry, I guess I didn't call your name out loud enough. I apologize for that. 4, yeah.
My name's Steve Hill. I live in Malaspina Crescent. I am an engineer. I was here to give a presentation to Mayor and Council back in December on hydro on the first and second dam. And I just had a couple of comments to make because in the Hatch report, there was a letter from a fellow named Smith, Jim Smith, I think his name was, and he made some comments about the estimates that we had given. And I thought that I should apprise you of my opinion on some of the things that he said in his letter. I did ask staff to distribute to you a 2-pager, which you probably have, which shows the original work that I did on the lower dam estimates using RETScreen. Mr. Smith says that the capital costs for the lower dam, he takes issue with the estimates that I came up with using RETScreen, and basically says that, according to his calculations, that the capital cost for the lower dam would actually be about $1.6 million, which is 73% higher than the estimates that I made using RETScreen. Now, RETScreen is a software package that was developed by the Canadian government for estimating energy projects worldwide. It's used by thousands of people in thousands of projects around the world. It's been in existence for decades. It bases its calculations on a database of Canadian projects, hundreds and hundreds of Canadian projects, and then those are extrapolated to projects in other parts of the world. So if RETScreen comes up with an estimate of capital costs for a project in Canada, I think that their numbers are a little better than plus or minus 70%. So I take issue with Mr. Smith's comments about that, and I think it's important for Council to keep that in mind because the capital costs of the dam make a huge impact on whether or not the thing can make some money. So that's one thing. The other thing that Mr. Smith says in his letter is that we underestimated the amount of money that we can make. Now, I'm assuming that's probably because he has access to much better flow data than I had, because I had to use just what was available to me on the RETScreen site, which is basically what's called specific runoff. He probably had some real numbers from the measurements that are made at the reservoir upstream. In any case, the bottom line is that his estimates of income are considerably higher than mine were, pardon me, I should say mine. And the bottom line of that is I don't know if you've got this thing in front of you, but it's got a little graph here that shows the income over the life of the project. And at the beginning of the project, it shows that you actually are losing money for about the first 10 years because you're paying off your debt. And then you start making money. Well, if Mr. Smith's ideas on income are correct, then there is no negative part to this. It's all positive. And the other thing to mention is that if the dam, the lower dam, was replaced, then you would be, and you put hydro in as part of the replacement of that lower dam, then your cost for civil works would be greatly reduced. And civil works is about 30% of the budget for a hydro project. And because of the fact that you're putting this in as part of a dam that you're building, you don't need a great big long penstock. You can basically put a hole in the bottom of the dam and pipe the water directly to the hydro plant. So, and you also don't need complicated intake structures, et cetera, at the top of the dam. So you can save a very large amount of money. The combination of those two things, the income increase based on better flow data and the fact that the dam, that the actual cost of hydro, the capital cost, would be significantly lower than even I estimated, means that if you were to put small hydro in the lower dam as part of a rebuild, at the end of the 30-year project life, based on the calculations that I made, and I think they're pretty reasonable in terms of the numbers that I used, you would probably have a net gain over and above your annual costs and debt servicing and everything of somewhere in the region of $3 million. And I think that $3 million would go a long way towards covering any additional costs over and above, if you looked at the cost of ripping the dams out and renaturalizing as we're talking about, and the cost of building a new dam and incorporating hydro in it. I believe that the income from hydro would more than cover those additional costs. And also keep in mind that at the end of that 30-year project, everything's paid for and you're still making money. And the costs and the estimates of income haven't even taken into account the fact that energy costs are going to escalate, and you're going to be making even more money. So I think it's a pretty strong argument in favor of rebuilding at least the lower dam.
Okay,
and
sir.
putting
There's
hydro-
5 minutes up before you go. We do have a question for you as well. So if you want to wrap it up first, then
I'm
we'll go on to the
finished.
question. I finished? Okay. Yep. Councillor Graves.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Mr. Hill.
Yep.
How does that affect the ability to swim in that lower dam and the fish?
Doesn't affect anything at all, because unless you're diving down to the bottom of the dam as part of your swimming program and get sucked into the hole at the bottom of the dam, which I don't think is likely to happen, and I'm sure that there'd be some kind of a protection over that intake, it wouldn't have any effect at all.
So you've got a teenager. How far down is that hole going to be?
It's like 40 or 50 feet, something like that. I think the head at that dam is somewhere between 50 and 70 feet. I can't remember the exact number.
Yeah.
I have to look it up here.
Okay. Just wondering.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't be any problem at all.
Yeah, okay.
No, not at all.
Thanks.
Okay, we have Councillor Johnstone.
Thank you, Your Worship. Mr. Hill?
Mr. Hill,
Sorry.
another question, sorry.
The net gain, you said, is $3 million over a period of 30 years.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I had that straight. And sound, noise factor of a hydro dam.
There's probably going to be some noise associated with it, but I don't know that it would be much louder than the noise that the spillway makes right now when there's a lot of flow and there's a lot of water coming down that spillway. It's pretty loud. So I doubt if it would be that big an issue. And I guess some people would say, well, that's the sound of us making money.
Okay. No further questions. Thank you. Okay, the next delegation I have is Miss Grace Nielsen. Miss Nielsen. Second time is Miss Grace Nielsen in attendance.
She's coming.
We have stairs there. Oh, rails, yeah. And I just want to acknowledge that you just very recently received a very prestigious award from the Lieutenant Governor in Victoria. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Mayor, Council, I come here tonight supporting the dam. As a community member, as a First Nations person, I value nature, I value the trees, I value the water, which we're quickly losing, and which, as a First Nation person, we've experienced over and over again. And I also respect and give credit to those who have been supporting the dam for this period of time. And I don't say that lightly, because we own 3 homes right there where you're saying the water will run. My daughter lives across from John Barsby School and my grandchildren. I have another daughter living on the other side of the school. So it's not something I just come here to say, I support it and I don't want it gone, because I've thought about it very carefully. I've listened to council meetings on TV, and I've listened to what people have had to say. And I give a lot of respect for those who have taken the time, that are engineers, to do this work for nothing. That means a lot to me, because you know where the value is. This is a place of peace and tranquility for everyone. But it is especially for those that can't afford to go to symphonies and theater and resorts and places that a lot of you are able to go. It is well known, if you're really involved in health, that the trees and the water are a place where you can connect mentally, emotionally, and physically. We have a lot of issue with youth and mental health right now. And this is a place where they can afford to go, where they can swim, where they can fish. And it's, to me, it's a lot more than a matter of economics. It's a matter of a healthy community. And I hear a lot about healthy community. Oh, that's the glib word that everybody talks about. But when it comes right down to walking your talk, do you do that? Do you really care? I want you to remember spirituality, because we all have spirituality in our hearts, and it's important to connect with that. If you can connect with that, you can connect with the health of individual people, in the mental health and the emotional. And so I hope that in being a progressive community, you will really look within your decisions, and you will really look within yourselves. I really do a lot of watching body language. So I can almost guess who hasn't really accepted this from the beginning. So as a taxpayer and a First Nation person, I really am concerned that when we talk about removing the dam and looking at it within the year of rebuilding, that it will never get done. And I heard this gentleman back here saying the same thing. I have a lot of respect for each and every one of you individually and the work you do. So I hope you really hear what I said as a First Nations person, and that you have some respect and really listen to what I'm saying to you, because right now I'm the only First Nations person that I know of in this room.
Okay, the next speaker is Miss Robin Hunter, sorry.
My name is Robin, excuse me, Robin Hunter, and I'd like Lauren to speak for me tonight.
Okay.
Lauren Gale, 1055 Palomino Place. Thanks, Grace. That was touching. I think it exemplifies any of us that have enjoyed these lakes. I won't spend very long on some of these slides because I have already sent this information to all the councillors, most of it anyhow. I will focus on a few points based upon new information we've got this afternoon. The purpose of this slide here is to illustrate that these regulations that we have to abide by come from an international level. Then our federal governments mandate it, our provincial governments enforce it, and we have to ultimately pay for it. I feel that based upon that we should receive some sort of assistance to help us cover the cost of meeting this regulation. Just to point out, I understand our new reservoir received about 25% funding from outside this municipality, and with that sort of ratio, we can certainly bridge the gap between demolition and keeping these lakes. I wanted to stress again the prices that were given to us from the $100,000 worth of reports that stated 2 new dams can be built for $8.6 million. They clearly contain at least 30 to 40% buffer or contingency for anything that is unknown. That's a healthy amount of contingency for this project, and definitely sufficient to do it. To that point, there's several qualified bondage contractors in this community that would guarantee they will do a design-build contract. When I mention bonded, I think I just want to clear that up. Bonded means that a contractor will commit themselves to doing the project for that value. In the nature of a design-build contract, if you do the design correct, there is no change orders, there is no overruns. And this bonding component means that if that contractor can't meet his agreement, then the insurance company steps in and picks up the tab. Also, I want to mention there at the bottom, as I understand, there's already $2.5 million that was a surplus that has been allocated towards these dams. So based upon what's been budgeted for removing them, plus what's been allocated from a surplus, there's more than enough to get this project done. In terms of safety, I wanted to go over that just quickly again, just to clear it up. New dams are definitely acceptable by the regulations and by our provincial authorities. Once again, they will withstand a 1 in a 10,000 year earthquake and flood. That means they will still be standing after that event. There's far more likely events which will happen that will destroy everything else in this city. The new reservoir will be gone. This building will be gone. The hospitals, the schools, it will all be falling down. It will be all in a state of disrepair, a state of disaster, and all that will be left is the Little Colliery Dams. Sorry. Thanks for the clapping, but it takes more time. So it could be our only source of drinking water. It could also be a source for firefighting and many other things that it can provide to the community. So really, it's no longer a recreational lake, but it becomes a critical service to our city. So this is what has been recommended by the staff, that we go ahead and take them out. What I wanted to present here is what that results in if we take them out right now without the design in hand to rebuild them, so the rebuild can happen as soon as possible after the removal. It will ultimately end up more cost to us as the taxpayer. Through these points here, the habitat cannot relocate as well if both lakes are gone, and therefore we have to pay for it in the increased HAD cost. HAD stands for that habitat alteration and displacement. Historically, separate deconstruct and rebuild contracts will always cost more than a combined contract. I wanted to stress this point here, that if their dams are removed and there's just left with 2 holes this summer, that it becomes a public safety issue. I don't know, we haven't received any details of how this will be dealt with, but basically the whole area will have to be fenced off. And then I imagine also there'll be some sort of watchman or a security guard to keep people out, because it will be a safety hazard, and you won't stop people going in there, unfortunately. I can't stress that enough, that it will be an ugly, unsightly, unusable, unsafe place. In addition, there will be additional stabilization. This laser's not working very well, but basically the lake edge flora will die. And there's also a direct cost, potentially, if the dam wall material cannot be relocated into the bottom of the dams, as would a rebuilding application, that you have to truck it away, and there's an additional direct cost right there. The solution is to always keep one dam in. Sorry?
His 5 minutes is up. You're
5 minutes
5.5
up?
minutes, so
Okay.
if you could just,
We'll
wrap
finish
it
it
up
up
when
here.
you get it. Yeah, please. No, but I just asked him to. Everybody's
Okay,
given
so
the same amount of time.
This is the solution. The solution is to, well, it was up until this afternoon, was to leave it for the next 12 months, which would give us time to do the design so that next summer we can remove them, remove one and rebuild one. Always keeping one dam in here. Up until this afternoon, the Dam Safety Branch had mandated that dams don't have to be removed this season. I actually spoke to them on Friday, and at that point, the Scott I spoke with, he felt that it really wouldn't be their decision, but it would be the city's decision. So something changed that today. It's unfortunate. From their perspective, we had already done, or the city had already done, what was necessary to mitigate the risk, and they were satisfied with that. In fact, when we met with them in January, the Dam Safety and the city, I said and suggested to them that if it's such an urgent matter, then let's take out the water, get rid of the water, siphon it out, dewater it. And they said, well, no, it's fine. That's not necessary at this stage because the city is taking the steps towards mitigating risk. That was the response. I think I've hit the most of these points here. This solution allows the dams to remain open, at least one. I don't know if any consideration is being given to it. If both dams are taken out, the park is unusable. There goes both the bridges. That means you can't do a loop, you can't use that as a park. It's no longer a walking path. There's one little bridge right up the very southwestern end, but you can't do a loop. You can't have any through traffic into that dam. Moving on. So this is in writing, the two options. We can either leave 2 mud holes in a quasi-state, which is neither being revegetated or rebuilt, and we don't know for how long. So it's an extended hazard to the community and a cost to the community while it has to be protected and made secure. And then this is the option that I was proposing, build 2 new dams. Last slide. We own the lake. We're speaking up for these lakes. Does a Nanaimo taxpayer really want to spend up to $7 million just to have the park destroyed and look like this on the left-hand side here? That's what the park's going to look like. Or would we rather pay the same amount of money, because I believe we have that funding, I believe we can get that funding, do we pay a little bit more and have this as we know it? That's the answer.
Okay. Thank you, sir. You got a question? Go ahead. Councillor Johnson has a question. Okay, just listen up.
Okay, we want to get to some questions.
Councillor Johnson, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. With respect, Dr. Gale,
Sorry, can't hear you.
with respect, I would like to just quantify what you said just now about the telephone conversation you had with the Dam Safety Branch. I'm bewildered by the fact that you get one reply, and yet our own capable staff receive a letter today that says leaving the dams in their present condition for an additional year is not acceptable.
That's right. Yeah, I'm puzzled by that fact too, and because of the late information here, we only received this just before the meeting. I don't know what has happened or transpired today that changed their heart, but when I spoke to them on Friday, which is actually his day off, and he called me back, he said that he felt that the city was moving in the direction, especially because I filled him in that we were planning on, that was an option that we might build 2 new dams to the highest standard, He felt that the city was moving in the right direction, and ultimately it would rest with the city as towards whether we carry the risk or live with the risk or not for another 12 months. So I don't know what happened today, but so that's the result.
Thank you.
Councillor Pachi.
Actually, I'm pushed this too early. I'm ready to make a motion whenever everybody is finished with the questions.
Well, is there anything else that Councillor Anderson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your presentation, Mr. Gale. I was just wondering, when you spoke to Mr. Morgan on Friday, did you tell him about the proposal to have the city wait a year and do the upper dam, and then as that's built, go and do the next one?
Absolutely. I explained to him what we call it, the best or the optimal construction process, which would be to wait until we have a design for new dams and then do the removal and rebuilding at the same time. And he understands that keep the water in as long as possible and have the water out for as least time as possible, which will let the habitat and the environment enjoy it not enjoy it, sorry, but allow it to exist there and relocate, and it would be less cost to us as a taxpayer, for sure.
Okay, thank you.
No, Philip. Any further questions from council?
I move to receive the delegation.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, sir. And now, Councillor Pachi.
Thank you, Worship. I have a motion to make with 3 points to it, and if I can find a seconder afterwards, I'd like to speak to them. And that goes as follows. I move that Council directs staff to put on hold demolition of both the upper and lower dam till the spring of 2014. Number 2, that the city proceed with removal and construction of a new middle dam in 2014, as well as removal and construction of a new lower dam in 2015, subject to obtaining the necessary approval and permits required to perform this work. And finally, Your Worship, that staff report to Council at the earliest opportunity and on updated costs and scheduling implications, as well on potential environmental, safety, and risk-related mitigation possibilities.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion on this?
If I can, and I can make it very short. When I go back to October of last year, when we were forced with a very difficult decision, that was to order staff to prepare for removal of the dams, we did so on the information that we had available. That was the seismic study of 2010 and the inundation study that we then commissioned and received in 2012. And I want everybody to know here, in camera or not, I have absolutely no excuses to make for the decision that we took at that point. It was a matter of public safety based on information that we had, augmented by very good staff help and assistance that we received in a very, very difficult time. So I want you to know that, first of all. I'm glad I made a motion in December, I believe it was, that asked for 2 concurrent studies to see if there was not another option or 2. And am I glad that the Council acceded to that and let us have that business of 2 concurrent conceptual studies. As you know, they came in a couple of weeks ago, and much to everybody's surprise, the amount quoted for renewal of both the dams was much less than any one of us could ever have thought of. And so to me, that became almost immediately an option, although there are things connected with risk and mitigation that I had a really difficult time wrapping my head around. I can tell you that 3 days ago, I came to the conclusion that I had listened enough, that I had paid enough attention, that I had learned a heck of a lot more about dams than I would ever want to know or wish upon you. But the long and the short of it is, I think I have listened. I'm not saying that the rest of this council has not listened, but I have, and I have come to a conclusion where I believe that the renewal of dams in a staged fashion, as Dr. Gale, as little as 5 minutes ago, alluded to, is a possibility, and that is the best way for the neighborhood. It is the best way for the community that I live in, and I don't live in Harewood, but I still think that is the best option that we have. That said, there are questions to be answered. There are cost ramifications that are different from what I hear from Dr. Gale than I hear from staff. So I need to have some of those things cleared up in a pretty serious way. But for me, the long and the short of it is that when I talk in my bullet 3 here about getting updated cost and scheduling implications, I'm doing that only for the interim period between now and early next year, when we can start removing and rebuilding. Okay. That is how I feel. That's how I have expressed it, Your Worship, and that's all I have to say.
Go ahead. Councillor Kip.
That was quick.
Yeah, quick.
Thank you very much. 100 years ago, people knew what they were doing. We built concrete for thousands of years across our Western world. Lots of concrete dams and structures are old in Nanaimo. From 2006 to 2009, we looked at the dams. 2010, staff started the process, and then in 2012, we heard about it with council. We made a decision, as Councillor Paget said, on the information we had. We've only had 6 months. It's obviously been a real interesting little 6 months on this dam situation. Sorry. We haven't spent a lot of money on this on life cycle, so we've saved some money over years, so we might have some money available. The Dam Safety Branch is not aware of all the alternatives that we've done. This motion will help us make contact with the Dam Safety Branch, make them aware of what we are doing as a community. I believe we could expand what we're doing. We could talk about our emergency management, and we've done a lot of it. Our staff has been going through exercises, response and recovery planning with our emergency social services, having emergency coordination exercises, fire rescue, meeting with all of our staff and talking about things and going through it. A good process. We could offer the Dam Safety Branch a full-scale exercise where our community actually goes out and evacuates some of the area and practices and pull a real full-scale. We could be a pride of British Columbia by showing this. The safety risk, I think I know as well as anyone, and I think because we live in an earthquake zone, it's been my opinion all along that we go along with it. So I want more process time for us to try and talk and convince the Dam Safety Branch about what we're doing, show the community need, base it on our 4 pillars, not just economics or the safety issue. And I believe we need to take a good serious look at this. I know it's a fear for some people, but I think we can mitigate the fear. We can plan for response and recovery and make this a safe community. So I support the motions.
Thank you. Councillor Greaves.
Thank you, Worship. I agree with most of what Councillor Paget says, but I'm not prepared to wait the year. Our solicitor, when we ask his opinion, says, given the foregoing, we recommend against the city deferring any remedial action in relation to the dams and recommend that the city move forward with remedial action at the earliest opportunity. That was May the 13th. And then you've seen the letter from Scott Morgan. Leaving the dams in their present condition for an additional year is not acceptable. Now, I'm not a lawyer, and I don't work for the Dam Safety Branch, and these are 2 different letters from two different people that say we shouldn't wait. For the life of me, I can't understand why we wouldn't listen to those two individuals. Now, so I won't be voting in favor of the motion. I would like to see the dams removed immediately and to...
Listen up, please. Just listen as a courtesy.
And 2 dams replaced as soon as possible.
Thank you. Councillor Johnstone.
Thank you, Your Worship. This for myself, and I'm sure most of my colleagues and our staff have struggled more with this decision than any we've had to make on council. I've had a personal bias during this entire process. I've listened to all of you speak, and I agree that this is an asset, a recreational asset, that we do not want to lose. But having said that, knowing the risk for the safety of my citizens, I don't want to wait 6 or 7 months to remediate. I want to know, and I'm going to ask the questions of the experts, our city staff, why it would take 7 months to design, to create a new design. Why would it take 7 months to design a new dam?
Is that a question to staff?
It's a question through you to staff, Your Worship.
Is that off? Would the light?
It's on.
I'm sorry. It's a standard timeline for design for any new construction, and we can expect it to be about that to do the design. It took that long to do the design for the removal, but most of that was for the permitting and to do all the assessments. So we can expect it to be about that.
Okay, then my second question, and I know you've answered this before, but if we lower the level of the water in the dams now, this is May, until the heavy rainfalls occur in November, and you've said that it's very difficult to siphon water when we have the heavy rains in our winter seasons. Would this be enough of a mitigation to satisfy the dam safety branch? I know this is a very difficult question for you to answer, but it's very important.
The dam safety branch has indicated that they would accept us eliminating the water, but recognizing that it would be extremely costly to do that just by pumping and siphoning for the winter flows. So we believe the only way to keep the water level down for the winter is to remove the dams themselves.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Beswick.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you to all those that have spoken over the last several months and taking the exercises at public forums and otherwise to express their professional views and their emotional views, which is critically important to all of us. I 100% agree and support Councillor Patchy's motion, be it
just listen, please.
Be it in camera or in public, as Councillor Patchy mentioned. My position has not changed. When we speak to opportunities for recreation, human values and qualities, neighborhoods and pride, civic pride, when we speak to things that are important to us emotionally, it goes far beyond a dollar value. We're being told that $6.5 million to remove the dams and renaturalize, and we're being told $8.6 million to remove the dams and replace them. So for me, that's not an $8.5 million decision, and in fact, it might be less. It's really a $2 million decision. We just spent upwards of $5 million to repurpose or renaturalize Bevan Park Frank Crane Arena. If I had to make a choice between renaturalizing the dams or Frank Crane Arena, it would be the dams 100%. So the Collery dams represent far more than a park or a trailway system. This is an outdoor recreational amphitheater, and this is truly something that we did in the North End. And I sit with my colleagues here that were part of the purchase of Neck Point and say, and had said, and in his greatest moment, former Councillor McNabb, that it was the best decision that he ever made was to form a part of the council that purchased Neck Point for the benefits of all the community for forever and for eternity. So we have the same opportunity to do the same thing with a piece of land and nature that we should be keeping. I support this motion 100%.
Councillor Brennan.
Well, I can't support this motion.
Please listen. Please listen.
Why, it's not in the North End?
Come on now. We're trying to get through this meeting, and we've shown respect for both speakers, for and against, and I just ask for your courtesy. We're getting near the end of this debate, and please just listen as a courtesy.
I can't support this motion because I feel a heavy burden of public safety.
Listen up, please.
So the most important job that we have as councillors is to ensure public safety. And we've been told by two reputable engineering firms, with accreditation here in Canada, who report to their professional bodies, who have been accredited by their professional bodies, and if they are found to be negligent, then they can lose their license, and they have a license to lose. So I put great faith when an engineer tells me that these dams have to come down because they're not safe. And while it may be hard to accept that that's what would be my motivating factor, that is, accept it or not. We've been told by our lawyer that we hold a heavy burden of responsibility for public safety. And I take that really seriously too. I understand and accept that the dams are the center point of the neighborhood. It's the gathering place, it's the place where people go for recreation, it's the place where people go for solace. I get that, I understand that. But we don't have the right to make a decision that puts the public in danger.
Okay, just listen, please. Sit down and listen, please.
You cannot waive another person's safety. You cannot on your own waive another person's safety.
You know, we can always adjourn the meeting if we're not going to go anywhere with this, okay? So just please listen.
You can't determine that because you are willing to put yourself at risk that anyone else is. We just can't do that. So with the legal opinion that says that this matter has to be dealt with a lot of haste, I can't support waiting the 2 years. I absolutely can support rebuilding the dams and making the park, taking the park back to what it is, but I can't support putting people in jeopardy because we're unwilling to wait and do it properly. So I won't support the motion.
Okay, Councillor McKay.
Thank you, Your Worship. So if we recap here, in 2010 we knew that these two dams were in trouble, that they were in danger of failing in the event of a seismic event. We did nothing. On October the 29th, we sent a letter to the Dam Safety Branch and explained what we had decided prior to that. It took them 3 months to even answer our letter. When asked later, after Councillor Patchy put his motion forward and there was a meeting with the Dam Safety Branch, they were asked the question, why don't we, if it's that big a deal, why don't we de-water right now? And their response was, no, it's okay, the city's working on it, you guys have got a plan that you're working on, it's okay, don't have to worry about it. When asked on Friday by Mr. Gale, they said, no, that sounds like a great idea. 2 new dams, what more could we ask for? 72 hours later, it's unacceptable. The idea of emptying completely and being left with a couple of mud holes, I've got real concerns about a HAD. I believe that we have better ability to transplant the aquatic life that's in them to one to the other while we do this in a controlled fashion. And I believe that it makes absolutely sense. It makes absolute sense. I just can't imagine how much sediment's going to be going down that river while there's a couple of mud holes that the water has to pass through. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And receiving this email today is highly suspect in my mind. So I completely and totally support.
Calling a point of order on that. You can hold your opinions about whether you think that the information is good information or bad information. But you cannot voice the opinion that our staff or even the Dam Safety Branch has purposely misled. And that really
I upheld it.
needs to be withdrawn, Councillor McKay.
I will not withdraw that. The fact is that the Dam Safety Branch took 3 months to send us a letter. If it was that critical, why all of a sudden are they flip-flopping? We've got a plan in place.
Okay.
That's who I have a challenge with, not our staff. I have a challenge with the Dam Safety Branch.
Okay, we're just going to try to get the first-time speakers. We've got some people on it a second time, but let's get Councillor Anderson on here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And the first thing that I have to say is this is a difficult decision for all of us. I was born and raised in Harewood, and I know the importance of the area to a lot of the residents, as I remember the multiple times that I went on the dam runs through John Barsby, and my recent conversations with Mr. and Mrs. Harvey at Quality Foods regarding the dams. One of the first things that I have to say is I don't think that anyone on council or in our staff wakes up in the morning and says, how can I make Nanaimo a worse place today? If anything, I think that all of us on council try to find out what we can do to best make this city a better place. And as I said, I was born and raised here. My family came here in the late 80s, and I can tell you the improvements that have been made to this community in that period of time have made Nanaimo a better place, and that's based on the dedication of committed city staff and also successive committed councils. So, as you all know, the decision that was made was based on safety and the risk to the public. I continue to live in Harewood, and I believe I'm the only councillor who lives in that area. And I continue to have many conversations with people in that area. And as we can see from tonight, the amount of people who are in the audience and the ones who have sent us petitions and the ones who have showed up to public meetings regarding this issue. So it's been difficult. You may not like what I have to say based on my comments that are going to follow. I can't support waiting a year to build brand new dams, but having said that, from the members in the community that I've spoken to and hearing the comments that have been made by the numerous groups that want to save the colliery dams, I can vote in favor of building new dams. But the consequence to the people in that area, the people who attend John Barsby Secondary, the school that's in the area, I don't want to have that on my shoulders. And I don't think the reason why, we don't know whether or not it's going to happen, and I can agree, but what our council is trying to do is trying to mitigate the risk. And so if, as you've heard from different councillors, we're fine with looking at the potential of building 2 new dams, but in the interim period, it's reducing the risk to make sure that we can keep people safe during that period of time. So in the interim, I can't vote in favor of waiting the year, especially after we received a letter from the provincial government, which is the one that sets the regulations. I can tell you if it was up to this council, I don't think we would be trying to build new structures to a 1 in 10,000 event. But these are the regulations that we have to work within, and so that is why I can't vote in favor of building, waiting a year to do this, but I can be in favor of building 2 brand new dams. And I can tell you that's a change from my initial point of view. But it's been talking to the numerous people in that area and hearing the comments and concerns of the people in this area. So as I said, I can be in favor of voting for new dams, but I can't vote in favor of the first one, so I won't be voting in favor of the first one, but I will support the rest of Councillor Patchy's motions.
Now, thank you very much, Councillor Anderson. For my part, I also support the rebuilding of the 2 dams, but from my point, and because of risk involved, I want the deconstruction to start immediately, and then staff be requested to develop and present a plan to achieve those goals. Councillor Kipp.
Thank you, Your Worship. Getting back to the letter from the Dam Safety Branch that we received today, and I heard, I think it was Councillor Brennan said that they asked us to expedite this as soon as possible. And the last 2 paragraphs again, October 20, if you can indulge me. October 29, 2012, we received a letter from the City of Nanaimo stating the City of Nanaimo Council passed a resolution to proceed with removal of the middle and lower Chase dams as soon as reasonably practicable. On January 21st, we accept the decision as a viable option to eliminate the unacceptable risks to the downstream. The next paragraph. It is my understanding that the City of Nanaimo Council are considering a change in their position with regards to this resolution. Please note that the province's position regarding these dams has not changed. Should removal of these dams not be undertaken this year, the City of Nanaimo must mitigate the risk by some other method acceptable to the province. Leaving the dams in their present condition for an additional year is not acceptable, but must mitigate the risk by some other method acceptable to the province. Let's go to the province with the ideas we have, see which is the best acceptable methodology of fixing this to them. Give us a week or 2. I'll go down tomorrow to talk to them to see if they accept. Stop, please. To see if they accept some of our other ideas of mitigation. The only option they know now is we want to rip it out. They don't know that 4 of us are thinking of keeping it, or some are concerned. We've got a couple on the edge here. This says, must mitigate the risk by some other method acceptable to the province. Well, let's talk to the province. One more time.
Now, I'm just going to ask, we've got 3 or 4 more speakers, all of which has spoken before. Does anyone on council have their mind made up? Is there anyone who doesn't and can't decide what to vote on? And if everyone's made up their mind, there's no point going around the buoy several times here. So the motion on the floor, would you like to read, Mr. Howitt, the motion on the floor, please?
Your worship, the motion is that council directs staff to put on hold demolition of both the upper and lower dam till the spring of 2014. Number two, that the city proceed with removal and construction of a new middle dam in 2014, as well as remove and construction of a new lower dam in 2015, subject to obtaining the necessary approvals and permits required to perform this work. And third, that staff report to council at the earliest opportunity on updated cost and scheduling implications, as well on potential environmental, safety, and risk-related mitigation possibilities.
Okay. We've all heard the motion that's on the floor. All those in favor? We have Councillor McKay, Councillor Patchy, as well as Councillor Beswick and Councillor Kipp. Those opposed? We have Councillor Brennan, Councillor Greaves, Mayor Tan, Councillor Anderson, and Councillor Johnstone. So the motion fails.
Your worship. I have a
Okay, go
motion.
ahead.
I have an alternate motion to make. And
Okay,
that-
please.
that-
Yeah.
That is that staff proceed with immediate removal of the lower and middle Chase River dams and take the necessary steps to build replacement dams for the lower and middle dams and ensure that the lower dam can be used for hydroelectric generation.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? We have Councillor Brennan, Councillor Greaves, Mayor Tan, Councillor Anderson, you're up, and Councillor Johnson in favor. Opposed? We have Councillor Patchy, Councillor Kipp, Councillor Beswick, and Councillor McKay. The motion passes. And we'll move on now into delegations pertaining to the 2013-2017 financial plan. Well, we're just going around in circles, Jim. So, huh? Yeah. Yeah. So, what we're going to have to do, what we need to do is there any delegations that, is there anyone that wants to move the... Okay. Why don't we just wait for about 5 minutes for the delegations? Okay.
We did.
Did we have...
If you want to keep quiet, bye-bye, Mayor.
Not well. Did you want, there's the motion is for the financial plan? agenda. And the B item here is delegations pertaining to the 2013-2017 financial plan. And okay, well, would somebody like to make the motion? We're not going to wait till indefinitely here, so there's a motion that would somebody like to make the motion there? The financial plan amendment bylaw 2013 number 716 2.0 be adopted?
So moved.
Moved and seconded? You move, you second. All those in favor? We have... So in favor, we have Councillor Brennan, we have Councillor Greaves, Mayor Rattan, Councillor Johnstone, Councillor Patchy, Councillor, I think Anderson, did you have your hand up earlier? Yeah, no, I got him too. Opposed, we have Councillor Kipp and Councillor Bestwick. The motion passes. Do you want to move the second one?
Tax rate bylaw 2013, number 7167 be adopted.
Okay, are you going to second? Oh, you moved it?
Yes.
And Fred Patchy seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? We have Councillors Bestwick and Kipp opposed. Balanced council in favor. The motion passes. Moving into Community Safety and Development, 9A, Development Permit DP 000837 at 1871-1881 Dufferin Crescent. Purpose is to seek council authorization to issue a development permit for a light industrial development with one variance and subject to lot consolidation. And the motion is before, if somebody would like to move that.
So moved.
Moved?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Move into B, Development Permit DP 000840, 3326 Stevenson Point Road. The purpose is to seek council authorization to reduce the required lead strip adjacent to the sea from 15 meters to the natural boundary of 0 meters to allow for reconstruction of the existing pool and surrounding deck area.
So moved.
Move staff recommendation. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Development Variance Permit DVP 00209 at 2468 Kenworth Road. Purpose to seek council authorization to vary the provisions of a signed bylaw 1987 number 2850 to allow for the placement of 4 freestanding signs on the subject property. Moved. Second. Oh, sorry, yeah. Is there anyone in attendance that wants to speak to this that the crowd is narrowed out? Mr. Tucker.
Yes, Your Worship. It's just to bring to your attention, we received one written submission. It is saying that this is from the Nanaimo Recycling Exchange as a close neighbor to the new development. We have no opposition to the variance to display 4 freestanding signs and make one recommendation. Notwithstanding our own signage challenge, we ask that the use of animated LED signs or revolving signs on the property be discouraged, and that's signed Jan Hastings.
Okay. Moved, seconded. Moved and seconded. Councillor Brennan.
Can staff confirm that without council approval, that 2 signs were erected on this property, contrary to the procedure?
Under the sign bylaw, they would be allowed to erect 1 sign, and a second sign was installed.
And what reason did they give when you spoke to them?
It was in terms of the timing, and they were unaware of the variance permit requirements, and they had a grand opening scheduled, so they moved ahead with a sign.
Without obtaining, so they delayed, they didn't make the right steps at the right time.
It was in the period when there, because with a development variance permit, we have to notify the surrounding neighborhood. And it was during that period when the notification had gone out and the application was in stream.
It's really discouraging, Your Worship, when something like this happens, because I think it adds to the general sense that you don't have to pay attention to council, that you can simply take steps on your own without going through the proper procedures and the proper process. So I'm discouraged that this has happened, and I understand that there's very little we can do, and that being put in a position where you feel powerless is very unfortunate. And I find this a really unfortunate set of circumstances.
Yeah, fair point. Councillor McKay.
Thank you, Your Worship. To staff, is it my understanding that the proponents of this project are from Ontario?
I believe the ownership group is based in Ontario, that's correct?
Is it my understanding also that that there was some belief on their part that because all of the drawings from start to finish, including what went to design advisory panel, development permit, everywhere, every step of the way, that because there was signage involved in that, this may have been an oversight?
That may have been an oversight, yes, I'd agree with that comment.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor, sorry, you finished? Councillor Bestwick.
Your Worship, I'm not even going to respond.
Okay, Councillor Kip.
Well, this is an interesting one. I believe what happened, and this has been in the works since about 2010 or 2011, I think July 2011 the plan was, or 2012. And originally they were going to subdivide the property into 4 units for each building, and each building then with a title would be allowed a sign under our law. Then they decided not to subdivide, I understand, but left the same drawings in place and then applied for a DVP. $10 million worth of buildings, 4 car lots, huge, making our city look classy with all the Mercedes dealerships. And they ran into a 1+ year process on development permit. So I believe they just wanted to put those big signs up for the Mercedes dealers and all the businesses coming into town. And I think that's why this got delayed and got kind of screwed up, because typically in economics and business right now, things change dynamically, change very, very quickly. They shift from, a strata might have worked, but no, it doesn't. Now we subdivide, or no, we don't subdivide, we leave it as a strata. So business is dynamic, and I think this got caught in that. And I think the people really wanted to put those beautiful signs up on the road and make their place look finished for the $8 to $9 million investors. And I think part of me says our process is slow, they were a bit slow, but let's pass this and move on.
Well, I'm inclined to agree to the extent that I think they did, some of the buildings aren't yet finished, and I think they did want to open the Mercedes part first, and I think they tried to accelerate the opening date. So it was, I don't really feel that it was something that was done deliberately, but it's happened, and I think we need now to see if we can remediate the problem. So let's get on the motion, the staff recommendations on there. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Move into the official community plan amendment applications, OCP 00059/OCP 00060, and the rezoning applications RA 0000306/RA 000-307-533, 537, 555, 575 Milton Street. Mr. Tucker, do we have to have all these zeros in here? So the purpose is to describe the OCP amendment application to amend the Old City Neighborhood Concept Plan Sub-Area 2 and rezoning applications that would amend the existing DT11, the Old City Infill Service Commercial Zone to facilitate development of a multiple family dwelling on the subject properties. There's 3 recommendations. Can we move them? Do they have to be seriatim, or can we move them as a block? 1, 2, and 3?
Second.
Move and seconded, and that's acceptable? Okay. Move and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. All that reading and it was over in a flash here. Let's move into the bylaws. The official community plan amended bylaw 2013 number 6500.019 to amend Schedule B, the Old City Neighborhood Concept Plan by bylaw number 6500 and add sub-area 2A to permit multiple family residential development within a portion of sub-area 2. There's a motion 1 and 2. I think we can take them both together.
Move 1 and 2.
Move 1 and 2. Seconder. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving into zoning amendment bylaw 2013 number 4500.041 to amend bylaw number 4500, permitted uses, density, and height of the Old City Infill Service Commercial DT11 zone. We have motions 1 and 2, and I think move 1 and 2. Second. Moved and seconded. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And we'll move into E, the official community plan amendment applications, OCP 00070, rezoning application RA 000310, part of 3500 Hillside Avenue, Pacific Edge Way. The purpose is to describe an OCP amendment application to redesignate lands from urban reserve to neighborhood and parks and open space. A rezoning application would rezone the lands from urban reserve AR2 and steep slope residential R10 to single dwelling residential R1 and Parks Recreation Culture 1, which is PRC 1. Those applications are to facilitate a residential development on the southern portion, or 11% of the lot, and dedicate the remaining land, 89%, as a park. Let's move. Councillor Graves, do you want to put it on the floor, and then you've got a question? Would you like to move it?
Staff 1 to 3, staff's recommendation?
Second.
Okay. Councillor Patchy, did you want to speak to this?
Yes, please. Thank you. That would be a question to staff with regards to a letter we have from a Ms. Hennigman, the ecosystems biologist of the Ministry of Forest, Land and Natural Resource Operations. The question I want to ask is, was a bio-inventory ever done on this property, other than, the riparian was done? But she mentions here that the site, including the wetlands, should be checked for red-listed Douglas fir, blue-listed field other, and so on, and other occurrences of sensitive features prior to any vegetation clearing and soil disturbances, which she also alludes to has happened already without a bio-inventory. Is she correct in her letter? And if that is the case, why does the city not insist on doing that?
I haven't a copy of that letter in front of me, so I don't know the specifics of it. In terms of the dedication, it's to dedicate the majority of the site, including all of the wetland area, and the leaf strip around the wetland area would become part of the park dedication. The specifics of the distances and so on was to make sure that the wetland is protected and the associated ecosystems. The area that is the subject of the development is a cleared portion of the site that has already got soil disturbance on it, and is already in there's been a series of soil dumping going on that portion of the site for a number of years. The specifics of the bio-inventory is what I think the term you used. I don't have those specifics in front of me.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Graves.
Thank you, Worship. Initially, when we had some delegations in front of us for this at the Advisory Planning Committee, and they were concerned with various things, but and so I was a little concerned myself, but I see 89% of the property is going to be dedicated to park, and I can't recall how many acres or how many hectares that is, so that sold me on agreeing with the staff's recommendation, so I would be completely in favor of this.
Okay. Councillor Johnstone.
Thank you, Your Worship. When we're aware of arsenic contamination on any site within our city boundaries, do we remediate that, Mr.? There's a concern about issue due to the presence of wetland and areas poor water quality as a result of area contamination or arsenic contamination.
Mr. Tucker?
But that's a reference to if the development, it's in an area where it would normally be on wells, because there wouldn't be an extension into the area of city services. And so if the development was to proceed under the existing zoning, they would also be required to be proceeding by using well water. The proposal in front of us this evening is to connect to city services, and therefore you're providing a safer water to the people who would be living in those houses by connecting to the city system. So it's a question of what your water source is in this case. So the proposal is the preferred option rather than leaving them on an unserviced site in essence and relying on well water.
I understand that, but I'm wondering why would there be arsenic contamination in the first place?
I believe it's related to, there's a background level of arsenic where you have coal in the geology of the area. So where you have coal operations, you also commonly find arsenic.
But it can occur naturally then?
That's correct, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded on that. Is question on it? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving into the bylaw, official community plan amendment bylaw 2013, number 6500.019, to amend Schedule B, the Old City Neighborhood Concept Plan by bylaw to 6500 to add sub area 2A to permit multiple family residence development within a portion of sub area 2. And there's two motions there. Move 1 and 2. Second. No discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving into zoning amendment bylaw 2013 number 4500.041 to amend bylaw number 4500 permitted uses, density and height within the Old City infill service commercial DT 11 zone. There's 1 and 2. We can move them together. Move them and second it. You've got them both. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving into E, the official community plan amendment application OCP 00070, rezoning application RA 000310, part of 3500 Hillside Avenue, Pacific Edge Way. Yeah.
Page 105.
Are we now? Is that not? Are we?
Throwing us all off.
Sorry?
Your Worship, I believe we're on F.
E, F. Oh, sorry. Yeah, good point. I missed that one there. But, F, City of Parksville proposed official community plan. Purpose to seek council direction regarding City of Parksville's proposed official community plan referral. And the staff recommendation is there. Okay. Seconder. Moved and seconded. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Move into G. Request to reduce. What? Request to reduce development cost charges for not-for-profit rental housing, Nanaimo Travelers Lodge Society at 1917 Northfield Road. The purpose is to provide council with background information regarding a request submitted by the Nanaimo Travelers Lodge Society, which includes a 50% reduction of development cost charges for their proposed new facility at 1970 Northfield Road and authorization of the associated housing agreement.
Move staff's recommendation, Your Worship.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving to the bylaw for it. That motion that the housing agreement bylaw 2013 number 7174 to enter into a housing agreement with Nanaimo Travelers Lodge passed first reading. Moved and second. All those in favor? Opposed? And move into the second.
We have the housing agreement 2013 number 7174 passed second reading.
Yeah, I was just going to say pass second reading. I wasn't going to read the whole thing again.
I was going to save you time.
It's the same thing. Yeah, I was just trying to save some time, but thank you for that.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And now pass the third reading. Thank you. Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Now we're going to the Nanaimo Food Charter and Food System Strategy.
I move that council receive for information a report pertaining to the Nanaimo Food Charter and Food Strategy System.
Moved and seconded. Councillor Page, do you want to speak on this?
Just an observation. You know, I attended the very successful workshop way back when, at this point it seems, at which time there were some people who were really interested in getting the feedback and then sit down and work through it. And one of those persons feels still that someone whom I respect, that has not happened. And I've got some notes from her which I won't go into right now, but I will just say to Mr. Tucker that I will forward them to him, and hopefully he can pass them on to Ms. Jensen for some consideration in the future. That's all I have to say.
Okay. Do we have a mover and seconder already? And so the question on this, all those in favor? Opposed? The motion carries. Going into Harewood Neighborhood Plan Process Update. Purpose to provide an update on the status of Harewood Neighborhood Plan process.
Move the staff's recommendation.
Is there a seconder? Thank you. No discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving to the land exchange agreement. Oh, you, Councillor Brennan, do you want to? We'll just show that Yeah, Councillor Brennan has absented herself on a perceived conflict of interest because her husband is employed by that school district. And the item, land exchange agreement between school district number 68 and the city of Nanaimo, implementation timeline, and the purpose to outline the timing and key steps in implementing the land exchange agreement with school district 68. Move the recommendation. Second. No discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And I believe is that the only one involving the city for staff and the school board, or there's still some more? Well, we should have clustered them all together.
We move L forward? Or we could have...
Okay, so we'll move L forward. Is there a seconder for that? All those in favor?
Yes, I'll move the staff's recommendation.
Thank you. And you seconded it?
Yes, I did.
Okay. 1 and 2, and this is on L. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
And I move the bylaw that highway closure dedication removal portion of the Ungain Lane parallel.
Okay, what number are you on?
That's right below it, L.
Okay, you're doing the bylaw?
Yep.
Okay.
It's the 100 block of Princess Street bylaw 2013 number 7170 pass first reading.
Okay, is there a seconder? Moved and seconded. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
And that highway closure dedication removal bylaw 2013 number 7170 pass second reading.
Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. So I think we can have Councillor Brennan back, and we'll go back to
Your Worship, M is also
M.
affects School District 68.
M, the acquisition of 295 and, oh, yeah, indirectly it is, it's part of the, okay. So M will do now, and that's the acquisition of 295 and 299 Selby Street. Purpose is to release information pertaining to the council's approval to acquire 295 and 299 Selby Street, attachment A, from Longwood Station Limited, but it is in fact connected with the exchange with the school district. Moved and seconded. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. So that one's done. So now we go back to the proposed land exchange between Dunn Lycum Investments and the city of Nanaimo, and that doesn't have any connection for the school district. So, Councillor Brennan, we're going to be doing on K, and that's the property actually down at Departure Bay. Proposed land exchange between Dunn Lycum Investments and City of Nanaimo. The purpose is to request council approve in principle to enter into a formal land exchange agreement between James Dunn and Lycum Investments that is mutually beneficial to both parties. There are 3 motions there, and if somebody would like to move them.
So moved. Second.
Move and second 1, 2, and 3. Councillor Patchy.
Just a question which I think I know the answer to, but I'm not quite sure. If you look at the map connected with this, page 140, and you look at the 4.0 acres that are to be added, how do you connect Woodstream Park, as we know it now, to that particular piece to the west when we still have a dedicated road in between, Robson Road?
Your Worship, James Street is a dedicated road at that portion, but unconstructed. So in terms of the land itself appears to be natural open space through that full area. Mm-hmm. The city owns the right-of-way for James Street, so it does in effect make a contiguous
that is James Street, but I'm asking about Robson Street.
Robson Street is the same. That's on the downhill side of Robson Street, where it's an unconstructed portion of Robson Street.
But does that mean that that portion, that dedicated road portion in between, that will become park?
Council would have to do a road closure bylaw for Robson Street and then authorize the survey work to undertake to raise title to that property. So we could take those steps in order to formalize what currently exists in its natural state.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so Question, this is on item K then, and those the items 1, 2, and 3. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And we are now, I think, catching up with item N. I think that's the road closure portion of Nanaimo Museum, Museum Way, northeast of 100 Gordon Street. And the purpose is to introduce a bylaw 7171, which will close the unused portion of the road on Museum Way. Move.
Staff's recommendations.
Second.
1 and
Anyone?
2.
Anyone for seconds? Pick one. Thank you. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And now we go into sorry?
Final.
Yeah, the bylaws that are applicable to it. And the first bylaw is a motion that highway closure and dedication removal, a portion of Museum Way northeast of 100 Gordon Street, bylaw 2013, number 717, pass first reading.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? And motion that highway closure and dedication removal pass second reading. Moved, seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving into O, business license amendment bylaw 2013, number 51.10. Proposed amendments to require fetal alcohol spectrum disorder warning signs be posted in premises where alcohol is consumed or sold. And I think Mr. Tucker, or I'm not sure who's oh, you're going to, sorry. I think this was just an error in drafting, was it not? That Mr. Seabird?
Your Worship, when we referred this to the ministry, they asked for the word public to be added. That wasn't previously in place, so this is just an addition of that one word.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, seconder? Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And the two applicable bylaws that council will rescind third reading of the business license amendment bylaw 2013 number 5351.10 to require fetal alcohol spectrum disorder warning signs to be posted in the premises where alcohol is consumed or sold. I think we might want to do these seriatim. Is that, yeah, okay. So if someone would like to move one.
So moved.
Seconder? Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? And 2, that business license amendment bylaw 2013 number 5351.10 pass third reading as amended. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Property maintenance bylaw 1990 number 3704. It's requested that council hear anyone wishing to speak with respect to property maintenance for the properties listed below, and that council pursuant to property maintenance bylaw 1990 number 3704 direct the owners of the following properties to remove the materials as listed below from the premises within 14 days, or the work will be done by the city or its agents at the owner's cost. The first property is 253 Victoria Road, which is before you now. Overgrown blackberry bushes, discarded plant material, garbage, and miscellaneous debris. Is there anyone in attendance who would like to speak to matters related to 253 Victoria Road? The second property is 510 St. Andrews Street. Household garbage, discarded lawn furniture, old installation, discarded lumber, and miscellaneous debris. Is there anyone in attendance that would like to speak to matters related to 510 St. Andrews Street? Seeing none, if somebody would like to make the motion. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Unresolved building deficiencies, notice on title, section 5.7. It's requested that council hear anyone wishing to speak with respect to unresolved building deficiencies for the properties listed below. Staff recommendation that by resolution instruct the corporate officer to file a bylaw contravention notice respecting the properties listed below at the Land Title and Survey Authority of British Columbia under section 5.7 of the Community Charter. The first property is 63 McClary Street. Is there anyone in attendance who would like to speak to matters related to 63 McClary Street? The issue deals with illegal secondary suites, construction of 2 secondary suites without a building permit. The next property is 566 Albert Street, illegal secondary suites, construction of 2 secondary suites without a building permit. Is there anyone in attendance that would like to speak to matters related to 566 Albert Street? Hearing none, if somebody would like to make the motion.
Move staff's recommendation.
Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Fine. The moving into corporate services, and A has actually been deleted now that we've passed that, so we go into B, policy routine release of in-camera resolutions and related reports and information. Purpose to present a draft policy for council's consideration related to the regular and proactive release of in-camera information. The motion that council adopt the attached policy routine release of in-camera resolutions and related reports and information. Someone would like to move? Is there a seconder? Moved and second. Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you, Worship. The staff recommendation is that we adopt the attached policy routine release of in-camera resolutions and related reports and information. Question is, what if and when we approve this staff recommendation, how far back will we be going in our release of in-camera information?
Your Worship,
Mr. Holmes?
consistent with the second council resolution that would happen on December 17th, we'd go back, we'd probably start working backwards of 2012 and then to 2011 and then to 2010. And if council wished to go beyond that, of course, we would do so at council's pleasure, preparing the documents for their review.
Thank you, Your Worship. And a follow-up, it will also include in 2012, 11, and 10 those items that we deem as a council to no longer be sensitive to the community. The manner in which the votes took place on those items as well?
Your Worship, the motion was specific to council release of minutes that were no longer sensitive or confidential, but in our review of the documentation and our discussion of it, we came to the conclusion that council should consider all aspects of the in-camera documentation, including minutes, and including staff reports and other information, and including the voting, but all of those things would be in front of council for their deliberations. That's correct.
Thank you, because as we note on page 215 of the report, it indicates on strategic plan considerations, the policy supports council's stated objective. We intend to be known and earn respect for collaborative council management leadership, visionary, strategic, progressive, highlighted, transparent, and focused on the public good. So I certainly trust that that will be inclusive. Thank you.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded on this one. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving into Comox Road Exchange bylaw and alternative approval process. Yeah, I guess you might be again. This is District 68. Okay, the Comox Road Exchange Bylaw and Alternative Approval Process, 445 Comox Road. The purpose is to obtain council approval to proceed with an alternative approval process to permit the transfer of a portion of dedicated parkland at 445 Comox Road as part of a land exchange agreement between the City of Nanaimo and School District 68.
I move that council establish a deadline of 4:30 p.m. on Thursday, July 4th, 2013 for receiving elector responses for the alternate approval process in relation to Comox Parks Exchange Bylaw 2013 number 7172.
Okay, moved and seconded on one. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Council approve the elector response form as attached.
Is there a seconder for that? Second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
And
third?
determine the total number of electors of the area to which the approval process applies, the whole of the city of Nanaimo to be 63,383.
Second? Second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And now the bylaw, the applicable bylaw to that is the motion that Comox Park Exchange Bylaw 2013 number 7172 to dispose of the closed park and to exchange the closed park for the new park with the registered owner of the new park. Pass first reading.
So moved.
Seconder? Moved and seconded. No discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Move second reading.
Okay, is there a seconder? Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Third reading.
And that's moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. I think that's all. Is it now for the school for the final time? I think we can get maybe Councillor Brennan in. Regional District of Nanaimo Pump and Hall Local Service Amendment Bylaw number 975.58 2013. The purpose is to obtain council's consent to the adoption of Regional District of Nanaimo Pump and Hall Local Service Amendment Bylaw number 975.58 2013. The motion.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And 2012 Development Cost Charges Reserve Fund Report. The purpose is the Local Government Act, Section 937.01 has a requirement for municipalities to prepare an annual DCC Reserve Fund report by June 30th of each year to be filed with the Ministry of Community, Sport and Cultural Development. Okay, moved. And is there seconded? Moved and seconded. Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you, Worship. With this DCC Reserve Fund report, is this where we have the opportunity, or is this where projects for DCCs are considered or identified for the future, or is this just simply a report of what we did in 2012?
This is a report, a historical report. What you're asking about, Councillor Bestwick, is the report that staff are working on to amend the DCC bylaw, and we currently have a process underway at the staff level to make recommendations through to council eventually on proposals to amend the DCC bylaw, and that's where the determination is made as to what projects would constitute projects to be funded by DCCs, how much of an assist factor council would provide, and those types of decisions. So that'll be coming up in the future when council sets the DCC rates.
And is it typically at this time of year that we do this?
Council's current policy is to do it once each term. As a matter of interest, council didn't do it last term, but the process is underway to do it this term.
So we didn't do it, did you say last term?
That's correct.
So it's been approximately 6 years since we've done it? Maybe even 7?
Mr. Clemens?
The last rates took effect in 2008.
2008. So, and would that have also been when we would identify the projects that we were speaking to identify the rates?
That's correct.
It's very untimely, unfortunately. Thank you.
Councillor Johnstone.
Thank you, Your Worship. A question through you to staff. How does this compare with previous years, the $34,468,000?
It's
Is it lower? Or?
It's virtually unchanged because development cost charge revenue was $4.2 million in DCCs and $759,000 in interest earnings, totaling $5 million approximately in revenues, and expenditures were $4.8 million. So it went up by about $200,000.
$200,000. Thank you.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Thanks for nodding. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. 2012 Annual Parking Reserve Fund Report. Purpose, the Local Government Act, Section 906, bracket 9, requires municipalities to prepare an annual parking reserve fund report by June 3rd of each year to be filed with the Ministry of Community, Sport and Cultural Development. And there's okay, and seconder? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And we're over to Community Services, the Event Center / Multiplex. The purpose is to provide council with general information about event centers or multiplexes. And the staff recommendation is the motion that council receive for information the report regarding community event centers.
So moved.
Sorry? You moved, and was there a seconder? Yeah. Is there a seconder in there somewhere? Moved and seconded. Okay, for discussion, Councillor Anderson, and then Councillor McKay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And if Councillor Kipp wants to have moved it, he can go ahead. So I'll be fine with seconding the motion. I just had a question in regards to page 283 under the operation. It says that the Save on Foods Memorial Centre in Victoria is the only event centre in BC where the city is not subsidizing the facility's operation. And I was just curious if you knew or were able to find out why a subsidy isn't provided.
In answer to Councillor Anderson's question, for that arena, RG Properties leases that from the city, and the lease payment is $250,000, plus the city gets $75,000 in ICE rental rates. So that's a part of the lease agreement between RG Properties and the city of Victoria.
Thank you.
Okay, and can I ask, there was a cost to the city of Victoria for this facility, was there not? 25 million. And, yeah, could you answer that?
Naritan, yes, the cost to the city was around $30 million. And so the city is essentially carrying the cost of the facility, and then they lease it to RG Properties, and RG Properties is paying them that lease fee, plus they give them their ice rental.
Okay. Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you, Worship. There's also a ticket surcharge of up to $2 depending on the nature of the event.
Yes.
For each ticket vended throughout the 365 days of the year.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Nanaimo Buccaneers Junior Hockey Club Limited lease agreement approval in principle to obtain council's approval in principle for a 20-year lease to the Nanaimo Buccaneers Junior Hockey Club Limited, the lessee, to facilitate the construction and maintenance of a dressing room at the Nanaimo Ice Centre at 750 3rd Street.
Your Worship, I'll be stepping out because I have a business relationship with the Nanaimo Buccaneers.
Okay, thank you. So we can show, the records show that Councillor McKay has absented himself on a perceived conflict of interest. So did we have a mover and seconder? Okay, so, and there can't be any discussion from Councillor McKay because he's gone. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And we'll move into actually that was 1 and 2. And you got that 1 and 2 for that one? Got that 1 and 2? I need a buzzer over here so I can electrify those seats over there that time. Okay, and now we're going into the bylaws with no accompanying report. 11A, motion that zoning amendment bylaw 2013 number 4500.037 or RA 309 to rezone 1844 Meredith Road from single dwelling residential R1 to single dwelling residential small lot to allow for a 3-lot subdivision be adopted. Moved, seconded. Discussion, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And then the motion that the housing agreement bylaw 2013 number 7166, authorization of a housing agreement that will permit a rooming house with 15 sleeping units at 545 Halliburton Street be adopted. Moved, seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Bylaw sheet is there, and we'll move into the correspondence. Seconder?
Second.
Sorry, yeah, and maybe we'll just do all in favor of that one. Then we'll come back and do business arising. And we have, is it 12A that you're on? You're on.
Yes, and in the interest of full disclosure, I'll tell you that the letter writer Jessica Lowry is my niece, and she.
Oh, sorry. This is the second one letter then from Jessica Lowry.
Yes.
Okay, that's fine because I don't think there's any questions on A. Was there for anyone? If not, we'll go into B. Sorry.
Okay, and I did draft a motion today. Wrong one. There it is. Jessica Lowry was writing in support of providing funding, finding funding, supporting funding for the studio theater development at the Port Theatre. And so I contacted the RDN to determine, and Ms. Lowry lives in Ladysmith, and there was several names attached to the petition, and there was names of some very prominent musicians and actors in the central Vancouver Island. But they didn't all live in Nanaimo, and they didn't all live in the RDN. So it seemed to me that maybe we could turn to the Cowichan Valley Regional District or the town of Ladysmith or any other sort of area that is a user of the Port Theatre. So I don't know how far this will go, whether we're just sort of wishful thinking, but I would move that staff be requested to explore the feasibility of creating a mechanism to enable communities outside the RDN whose residents appreciate and use the Port Theatre to contribute to its annual budget and or its studio theatre expansion proposal.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We'll move into, there's no council appointments. Is there any notices of motions that people want to make? And now we're down into question period, number 16.
I had a,
Sorry?
a question.
Oh, okay.
On council appointments, when do we announce the appointments to the South Nanaimo Waterfront Committee?
We would be bringing them forward next meeting. Of course, council can do them now if you want, but our intention would be to bring them forward next meeting. We're still waiting for the ones from the committee, the other agencies. We still have appointments to make from other agencies, so.
Okay.
That's the final word from staff, okay. So they'll be discussed in due course at some point then. Okay. Mr. Boland?
Ron Boland, 3165 King Richard Drive. It strikes me that the whole affair with the Colliery Dam has been characterized by a rather massive failure to communicate. And what I would like to ask about tonight's discussion was, what is the focus of urgency when so many people used a letter that came out this afternoon as a matter of decision in this case? It strikes me that we have several questions that need resolution with the Dam Safety Board. One is, what did they mean by mitigating risk in this case? And I note that Councillor Johnston made a possible mitigation in lowering the water in the dams for the time period. We don't know whether the Dam Safety Board would agree to that or not. And neither, then it strikes me that further discussion with the Dam Safety Board is required, given the information we have about the other dams in this city. Why is it that you folks and the dam safety folks can't sit down and decide what's really involved in these things before we go making decisions that affect so many of our citizens? Was there some reason tonight why we had to rush through this instead of saying, well, given this situation of a letter we got an hour and a half, our
I think, Mr.
failure to
Boland,
understand.
everyone spoke of the reasons for supporting it. The motion's been made and it's passed, as you're well aware. And I think most of the people here spoke of the reason they did or did not support it.
I'm speaking of the urgency in making that decision tonight, not in your reasons. Everyone will have their reasons. My question is that there seems to be a great deal that is misunderstood or not understood.
The matter actually was brought up last fall. It started and into December, into January, into February, into March, into April. Now we're into May. Maybe it's urgency, I don't know. But I mean, we've had a lot of months to think about it. So at some point, we had to make a decision. It's as simple as that.
That's what I'm saying. We've had a lot of discussion and no conclusions with the Dam Safety Board. We're making constant assertions about what their opinions are, apparently without knowing. Certainly,
their opinions
here that says must mitigate the risk by some other method acceptable to the province does not answer what that mitigation is. And as I say, Councillor Johnston raised a very good point for that mitigation. Why, in these circumstances, was it necessary to take a letter that came in at 3:44 this afternoon and make a decision tonight?
Okay, thank you, sir.
Never mind.
Okay.
Hi, Frederick Colvin, 122 Pirates Lane. Thank you again for letting us have this time. I wonder if we can just repeat the motion that was passed for Colliery Dam tonight, please?
Maybe should we get it right from staff? Is it easier that...
Remove as soon as possible.
Be directed to proceed with immediate removal of the lower and middle Chase River dams and take the necessary steps to build replacement dams for the lower and middle dams and ensure that the lower dam can be used for hydroelectric generation.
Okay, so the dams are being removed immediately, pretty much, as soon as possible?
That's the motion.
Okay, isn't that the most expensive option for Nanaimo?
It may well be, but in my view, and I guess in those supporters, while it may be expensive, it is the best solution in terms of public safety.
Isn't it going to be more dangerous having the big mud pits there, replacing the lakes?
Not according to our engineers.
Will the park be blocked off for people?
No, we understand that, and I think that there will be considerable effort made to mitigate and have temporary bridges so that it's not a useless park to anybody over the period of time that it's being redeveloped.
Okay, sir?
Oh, sorry, hang on one second. Well, I guess that's where it is. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's Gary Chandler, and I live at 120 Milton Street. I want to propose a fifth option, and what I would like is to get in writing as to why this might not work. Is that possible?
Well, we've made a motion on it already, sir. If you want to ask questions about it, but you know, we've already had a motion passed on it tonight. So
is it impossible to suggest a way that you wouldn't have to remove the dams, you wouldn't have to empty the lakes, and you could build new dams? And
well,
if that's possible?
Well, you should provide that to staff, and Mr. Hickey can.
Well, I wouldn't mind just in 3 minutes.
The motion is passed, sir. The motion has been passed.
Can I supply it to staff right here? No?
Well, if you've got something in writing you can leave with them, sure.
Well, I can just explain it. It's quite easy. Instead of, like, for some of you who don't know, the dams, the freestanding part is only about 25 meters. And like, if you stand at the back of them, look out, they look huge. But half of the dams are standing on bedrock, and the freestanding part's very small. If this was my backyard project, I would go into behind the dams and dig a trench and put steel bracing right into the bedrock, right in behind the dams in sections. So when you put that bracing in the shallow ends of both ends, you're not weakening the dams, you probably strengthen them. As you keep going, you put in these steel bracings till you end up with a trench with a form that you can pour and make the strongest dam in the world, that nobody could say it wasn't strong. And you're going to save removal costs of removing the dams, because when you're finished, you don't even have to take them out. You might have to do that in 100 years when you redo the same process at the front of the dam. I mean, I've just got good intentions here, because I see some of you were very upset about how this is going to upset the community. This could be done in November, like 7 months. I counted that 7 months. I would like some written explanation at 120 Milton Street, Gary Chandler, B9R2K3, as to why this type of construction would be not feasible. Because to me, it seems like it'd be the least expensive, strongest, without interrupting the whole community over these dams. Do you understand the process of what I want to do? Just put a trench in behind, do it in sections, and pour the strongest dam in the world without even removing the other ones. They can stay there for another 300 years.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Fred Taylor. I would like to ask if there's going to be any insurance or support to the taxpayer here if we get a new hotel, 10 years tax-free, etc., and it doesn't become permanent accommodation for possible students to the college?
That's a fair question, and I think hopefully as staff negotiates with the proponent, that issue will come out, because I asked a similar question that if they're going to bring 70,000 people here, are we going to have any hotel rooms left for people attending the conference? But your point's valid, and I'm sure staff will address that.
Because I'm looking at who the partners are, etc., and the college appears to be involved somehow, and they're always looking for students, and that sort of thing. That's why I was asking. My last question was in listening to Colliery Dam conversation. A siphoning process was too expensive, was the comments. And I would like to know how much it costs for the siphoning process at Westwood Lake and who pays for it.
I don't know, do we have that information available tonight?
The cost of the remediation at Westwood Lake? Oh.
Mayor Rattan, the cost of the remediation at Westwood Lake was around $600,000.
Pardon me?
The cost of the remediation at
Of
Westwood
the dam?
Lake. What's that? Excuse me.
You're speaking of the dam?
Yes.
I'm speaking of the siphoning, which was said to be too expensive for Colliery Dams to keep the water level low. And you've got a siphoning process on the go at Westwood Lake right now. Who's paying for it and how much the cost of it is too costly for Colliery Dam?
Mayor Rattan, I believe Mr. Taylor's talking about the release that we do through Darrow Creek for the Millstone side channel. So that is a low-level release. Is that correct?
No, it's not. We've just finished building the fishway through Bowen Park, and to try and, as I always argued, where's the water? Where's the water? So then we ended up putting a siphoning over the dam to provide water down the creeks to try and keep a flow in the new fishway through Bowen Park. Means that the siphoning process is in place there, and we're saying it's too expensive for Colliery Dam, a similar type of thing, to keep the level down. Who is paying for this expensive process at Westwood Lake?
Mayor Rattan, the process isn't expensive. The volume of water that we use for the fish on the Millstream side channel, which is for the months of July, August, and maybe into September, is, I could get the cost, but they're really negligible, versus the cost of siphoning at the Colliery Dams is a high volume of water because it's meant to keep the dams drained.
So we're saying because it's a small pipe versus a big pipe, it's too costly. Because that's the only thing that can take more water, is the difference in diameter of a pipe.
Let's move along.
So that's kind of strange.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Gord Fuller, 604 Nickel Street. Excuse me. The motion made actually calls for the dams to be rebuilt, but it doesn't seem to set out any timeline. Does that mean that there could be the eventuality that the dams never could be rebuilt?
I don't know if that's the case. I think staff were going to, part of the motion was to ask staff rather to come up with a timetable and a plan of how this could be done, the remediation work.
And that certainly wasn't my intention, that it not be begun as soon as it was practical after the dams have been torn down. It's my expectation that staff will begin work and that we will be getting regular reports on where we are in the process, and I'm sure that a timeline will unfold. And I would be surprised if the timeline didn't coincide with 2015.
Okay, thanks for that. Now, as much as I really enjoyed Charles Thirkell's presentations, Chase River being the major salmon producer, so on and so forth, will the removal of both of the dams at once have an effect on the salmon runs in Chase River? And would the DFO have anything to say about that?
I think that's part of the information that staff are going to check into afterwards. Mr. Kenny, you want to comment?
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to check into it before.
The city would, of course, have to comply with
DFO regulations.
DFO regulations, and there'd have to be mitigation steps to make sure that the fishery is protected.
Okay. And my final question, Councillor Brennan mentioned around the safety while those dams are empty. I believe she mentioned that we would mitigate safety. Could she explain further mitigate? We still don't know what the dam safety branch meant by mitigate, so Could you explain mitigate to us?
To me, mitigate means that you lessen the risk. That's, I'm assuming you want me to tell you what mitigation means?
Well, no. What efforts would be made to mitigate?
Well, I think that would...
The dam safety branch didn't give us any examples of what would qualify as mitigating. I'm just asking for an example from you.
Well, I think that once they're down, then staff and engineers would look at it and determine how to make it safe.
But no examples, sort of like the dam safety branch.
Well, Gord,
Yeah.
you do understand
Well,
that the
I
dams
do.
have got water in them right
Yeah.
now. You understand that part.
Yeah, I understand the whole concept.
So once they're down, we have to look at it and determine where it's at. Well, there's no way that we know exactly what's underneath that water, you know?
So not doing so with the dam safety branch, but doing so with the removal of the dams.
No.
It's just,
Well, I just think
it's not
you
making-
misunderstand what mitigation means.
Well, maybe the dam safety branch misunderstood what mitigation means. Maybe everybody misunderstood. Because the motion made
Okay,
by
is there
Fred
another
Pache.
question for me, or are you
No.
just going to badger me?
No, the motion made by Fred Pache would have mitigated. Diana
But it didn't
Johnston's
pass.
idea would have
It
mitigated.
didn't pass, Gord, as you know, so.
Yeah.
I know it has.
Okay. Did you want to speak to something?
One last pest for the night.
Just one sec. Gord, I think
Well, this is-
Councillor Bestwick has a...
It's in
Sorry.
fact, it's not a question for Gordon. It's in fact, because it's been raised, the Colliery Dam situation that we've just voted on, and we read what the motion said. I'm curious of what the financial implications are of the removal and then the subsequent replacement, because what we did vote on was removing them as swiftly as possible. We didn't address replacing them as swiftly as possible. It's going to be under constant review. The one thing that I don't understand is what the cost to remove and replace, the financial implications that we had. And I didn't get the opportunity to speak to this when the motion was made, and it was quite swiftly passed, although I had my button pushed. So I'm curious as to what the cost is, because on our scale of information that we had, it doesn't speak to removal and replacement. So I'm wondering if we have an answer on what that financial implication is.
Your Worship, it's my opinion that the way to deal with that is with a follow-up staff report, because there was also included in the motion was a directive that it include hydroelectric capacity, and we'll want to develop a budget for the project that Council has directed, and there'll also have to be an amendment to the financial plan to deal with the financing. So I think there'll need to be a follow-up report to Council to deal with the new budget and the new financial plan and possible options for financing the project.
So then we just agreed to proceed with something that we don't know what it's going to cost.
That's correct. I think everybody has an estimate. There'll have to be some work done to determine how to determine the more precisely the costs, so that we can present that to Council.
Thank you. And so one of the reasons how and why we got here from October, November, and December to now was because of guest estimates and best guest estimates.
Well, we have the work that the engineers have done, but one of the things they didn't advise on specifically was the route that Council chose. So we'll be working with them and coming up with a budget for Council to approve.
We will be coming up with a budget for Council to approve to include the hydroelectricity component. Without that component, I trust we would have had knowledge of what it would cost to have removed and replaced.
But there will be some options that council may want to consider in terms of the degree of interim improvements that you want to make for the interim period. There may be trail development, bridge development. Certainly staff would recommend a certain level of landscaping that council may want to do for an interim period, and I think that's an appropriate decision to be presented to council for approval.
Okay, Councillor Anderson, are you off now? Councillor Anderson?
No, it's fine. I was going to make a comment, but chose not to.
Okay, fine. Okay, that's it, I guess.
Okay?
Yep.
Jim Taylor, Nanaimo. Just with the dam decisions.
Just before Mr. Taylor continues, just for the record, it's asked that you give your address as well, because I know that Gord Fuller did it as well, so if you could just state that for the record.
That required that I give a street address as well as being a resident of just Nanaimo? I'm not sure of the protocol.
Well, the protocol is that's what we do, ask the person whether their name and address for the file.
Pardon me? I don't care, but we're going to be sticklers. We'll be sticklers.
Because I know that's how it's usually been done. I know that.
Well, sometimes we don't always do it the right way either.
Your Worship, we believe it is in our procedure bylaw to state your name and address.
Well, then my name and address is Jim Taylor, 644 Cadogan Street, V9S 1T7. With the Colliery Dam decision, if all the stars line up just right, how soon before there is actually a dam there with bodies of water sitting in them?
Well, I think you've heard tonight that the question's been asked several times, and I
didn't hear an answer, Mayor.
Well, you probably didn't because we don't know, but staff is going to get back to us with the report. You probably heard that. And with that, hopefully will be a timeline and we'll know. But as we sit here tonight, I don't know that we have the exact date for it.
So in the meantime, we will have two pits that look like the very first illustration that the engineers presented last meeting. You won't be doing any planting because that's not part of the procedure, so there wouldn't be any point in planting. So you're going to have those two muddy bogs for the next 2, 3, 4 years?
I don't think it's going to be that long.
Well, no, but we don't know, correct? And so on the matter of mitigation, if you've got these two open pits and public safety, is there any way of keeping people out of there other than just fencing off and closing down the park?
Councillor Johnson.
Your Worship, hopefully they won't be muddy pits, Jim. I've talked with staff about hydro seeding the base of the dams to at least make them green for the interim.
Do we know what's in the bottom of there?
Mud, probably.
Pardon?
Mud and...
And mud and rock, and
yeah,
you're going to hydro seed that?
we're going to look at it.
Thank you.
Ron Boland, 3165 King Richard Drive. Sorry to come back to you, but I would like to ask whether there would be a problem with issuing a removal design build contract almost immediately. That would cover everything. It has been stated that there are contractors who would do this for a specific
Mr. Boland, it's
amount.
gone back to staff. The recommendation is that it be referred back to staff, and I'm sure that information will be contained in the staff report as soon as it's available. But it's a good
I'm just
point.
asking if council would consider that that is a valid
I think it is.
thing that must come back.
Yeah,
to
I think
you
it is. I agree.
As an idea.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you.
Fred Taylor, in order to be consistent and freedom of protection, freedom of information and protection and privacy, why did we remove the addresses of requests to be delegations, et cetera, and then demand me see my address here? I want the same rates.
Yeah, but everyone knows your address.
When there's requests in here, which you have in this green copy, to be delegations, late delegations, etc., the address is removed. They put it on there, but it's removed.
Oh.
And I'm asking if, through freedom of information, etc., if you see my address here is removed.
Why is that?
So I want the same rate standing here. if they don't have.
Your Worship, I think that Mr. Taylor's got a good point. I think that there was changes to the bylaw that I'd forgotten about previously, that privacy requirements were such that we no longer record the address, and the staff have reviewed the procedure bylaw and can't find any reference to requiring name and address. What I think, so that is more convention than requirement.
But I think there's a problem here that you're raising, because I like to know if the person is an Nanaimo-ite, Lanceville-ite, Ladysmith-ite. That's why I want an address, know what where the person is from. Come and tell me what I should do in my town.
Well, after staff just said we weren't going to be recording him, I guess we're going to have to now. Councillor McKay, did you have something you want to add?
Yes, I believe that even though we get a condensed green sheet of the agenda, that in the full version, all of the addresses of the requested delegations are in there in their application form.
Not in your agenda. They wipe it off. They wipe it off.
No, I'm talking about in the full version, in the 300-page version.
I'm talking about that too.
Well, staff certainly will look into it, and
in other words, be consistent.
Yep.
And if you're asking me to
That's
come,
a fair point. I agree.
even standing here, if you ask me where do I live, I think you should know where I live. And if I want to come and stand here, I should be prepared to tell you where I live. Just as even on a delegation request, I don't like it being whited out of mine now.
Well, okay, I don't disagree.
It's a public meeting.
Yep. Okay, thank you, sir.
Hi, sorry about that. I'm coming up again. Just Frederick Collin, 122 Pirates Lane. Just in terms of what Councillor Bestwick said, if he had some hardware difficulties to ask a question about Ms. Brennan's motion, shouldn't this be voted again on next time, or be tabled to the next meeting before we go forward with it?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Do you?
Well, Mr. Bestwick said that he was trying to press a button, but he wasn't permitted to. It was something that happened with technologically speaking.
I think that the mayor missed his request to speak, but and so the vote was taken. In my view, had Councillor Bestwick wanted to rescind that and move that back and say, look, I didn't get a chance, that the mayor would have indulged him, but there was no such request on his behalf. He didn't make that request. He remarked, I didn't get a chance to speak, and he didn't say, I'd like to speak, can we do this again? There was nothing. It was a complaint, but it wasn't a request.
Okay.
It's not what I heard.
Based on the reaction here in this hall, wouldn't you think it'd be in your best interest to maybe revisit the motion that
Tell me what you mean by my best interest.
Well, the city's best interest. I mean, as Denise Talcon has stated.
Councillor Bestwick can ask, say that he didn't feel he was heard. I mean, he can do that, and he can ask for it, and,
But
it's up to him to do it, not you, right?
Right, no, exactly, yeah.
You get that,
Yep.
right?
Yep, I do.
Okay, so the ball's in his court, isn't it?
Okay. And you are aware that this is going to put us back in the news? As Denise Talcon said here once upon a time, that she said, with a city that's rife with controversy, people don't want to visit it.
Ah, so that's you that tweets.
Right?
That. I don't know.
He said it.
Who said that?
Denise Talcon? Tawson?
Oh, okay.
BICC Talcon?
Yeah.
Sorry, my apologies.
Yeah, you're right, she did say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think this is going to keep us in the news?
Oh, I have no idea.
I have no idea, can't tell the future.
Okay.
These are
But
on.
I think what's happened is that you've missed your win.
Missed my what?
The win. There's a big win here. There's two.
No, that's.
He's not a witness.
Do you have any other questions on the agenda, sir?
Yeah, I'm just, is the city going to tell the Go Fish BC not to stock the lakes anymore? Will staff do that?
Those are steps that will be taken. The steps that need to be taken will be taken.
And the fishing buddies will be canceled and contacted?
I think you're asking me questions that are actually operational.
I'll ask you all.
They're operational, so
Oh, okay.
I would
That'll all
suggest
happen.
What we
get a hold
normally
of
do,
staff.
sir, if you wouldn't indulge us, normally we ask people to take their hat off when they come in here.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I had it off.
Yeah,
Sorry.
and so it's a courtesy, but that doesn't change the line of question. I think we've answered the question the best we can.
Great, okay. Well, thank you.
Okay, sir, thank you.
Move to adjourn.
Moved and seconded, we stand adjourned.